and C are finished and in good condition. One steel bridge 33 yards long is already fixed up, and 2 others are in process of being so. The 34 kilometers which remain are being proceeded with rapidly. 1,700 workmen are continuously engaged thereon. Rails and sleepers are being regularly landed at Conakry. The first locomotive has arrived. By October the rolling stock complete for the first 150 kilometers, say 92 miles, will have arrived in the colony. Finance for the first section the colony borrowed from the Caisse de Retraite, on its own guarantee, 8 million francs, £320,000, at 4.10% in August 1899, and 4 million francs, £160,000, at 4% from the Caisse de Dépôt et Consignations in March 1901. The first loan is to be paid back in 40 annual payments, and the second in 25 annual payments, the 2 annuities together amounting to 430,000 francs, or say £17,200. These loans will be further supplemented by drafts upon the colony's local funds. West African mahogany trade imports of West African mahogany into European ports in the years 1898, 1901. 1898 40,167 tons 1899 48,902 1955,959 1901 44,582 Destination of imports in 1901 Liverpool 29,312 tons London 6,998 Glasgow 278 Germany 4,735 France 3,259 Imports in superficial feet, of West African mahogany into Liverpool for the past 13 years sup. Foot 1889 68,000 1890 259,000 1891 1,600,000 1892 3,000,000 1893 4,984,000 1894 4,700,000 1895 3,400,000 1896 5,098,000 1897 8,134,000 1898 10,519,000 1899 13,508,000 1914 34,000 1901 11,652,000 Import, consumption and stock of West African mahogany into Liverpool 1898, 1901, 1898. 1899, 1900. 1901. Import 10,519,000 feet 13,508,000 feet 14,034,000 feet 11,652,000 feet Consumption 10,571,000 13,496,000 13,764,000 11,978,000 Stock 633,000, 645,000, 915,000, 589,000 Imports of West African mahogany into Liverpool for the first 6 months of 1901 and 1902 respectively. Logs January, February, March, April, May, June. 1901, 1902. 1901, 1902. 1901, 1902. 1901, 1902. 1901, 1902. 1901, 1902. Lagos 1558, 799, 767 184,386,120,311 42 210, 43, 72 114 Benin 202, 599, 62 376 69, 121, 181, 56, 6677. Sapilai 65 49 44 44 58, 87 89 36 42 77. Other West African ports 23 73 626, 505. 1130 264 trillion 198 billion 604 million 617,206 502 million 320,114 The Gold Coast mining industry. Having but casually referred to the Gold Coast mining industry, it has been suggested to me that a few remarks might be contributed to the subject in an appendix. I am somewhat reluctant to write anything on the point, because I know absolutely nothing about mining, and the opinions I have formed, such as they are the outcome, 1, of conversations with a number of men who are more or less experts, and have formed their views of the prospects of the Gold Coast mining industry from personal investigation on the spot. 2. The perusal of a quantity of reports by companies which are operating and prospecting, and by companies which are doing nothing at all but squander their shareholders' money. 3. Historical research and study of the past performances of the Gold Coast as a gold producer. Beyond that I have no knowledge whatever, nothing but opinions, which perhaps the reader will kindly bear in mind when perusing the following notes. There is not the slightest doubt that gold exists in considerable quantities in West Africa. The earliest records we have of any trade at all being done on the west coast of Africa is a trade in gold dust. The external trade of West Africa dates back to the period when the Negroes beheld the Carthaginian galleys bearing down upon their shores. The internal gold trade of West Africa is probably even more remote, but there we enter the domain of conjecture. There is not the slightest doubt that the Portuguese, Dutch, English, French, and so on, obtained enormous quantities of gold from the Gold Coast. For many years the gold trade in the Gold Coast has practically been a thing of the past. The gold trade, as a trade, is long since dead. At the beginning of last century the great gold store, which had been accumulating for ages, of the coast peoples of the Gold Coast became exhausted. At that period the Ashantis, farther inland, still retained large quantities of gold ostentatiously displayed. James, Bodick, Dupuy, Hutton, and Hutchison bear witness to that. With the gradual undermining of the Ashanti kingdom this store also disappeared. Coming to more recent times, we find that the geological formation known as Banquette was discovered in 1878 in the Takwa district by a French traveler called Bonnet. That seems to have been the basis of the future modern mining industry in the Gold Coast, replacing the extinct trade. Many years of disappointment and failure followed Bonnet's discovery, due in a very large measure to the absence of transport facilities and to mortality. However, some of the mines which had come into existence subsequent to the discovery refused to be discouraged, and went on working, more or less half-heartedly, notably in the Wassa and Takwa districts. In January 1900 the scene changed, as though by a magician's wand. The man who waved it was a Mr. Stanley Clay, an engineer reputed of considerable ability, in the employ of the Consolidated Goldfields of South Africa, which corporation had been approached by the men who owned the Wassa and Takwa mines. This gentleman reported in effect that the Banquette formation of the district he had been dispatched to examine was so like the Banquette formation of the Rand as to be hardly distinguishable from the latter. Although some years previous to that report the Ashanti Goldfields Corporation, Limited, the parent, so to speak, of the Ashanti mines, had come into existence, I believe I am correct in stating that the remarkable boom in Gold Coast mining undertakings practically dates from the favorable report above alluded to. Be that as it may, the last 2 years have witnessed the extraordinary movement with which every one is familiar. According to Wallach's West African Manual, 4 June 1901, 321 companies had at that time been created, with a total nominal share capital of £25,567,170. The issued share capital will amount to approximately £15,750,000, if all is fully paid up. 310, this is truly colossal. But all is not gold that glitters. The boom, prematurely, and to a large extent, dishonestly engineered, collapsed. Deep distrust has taken the place of sanguine anticipations, and public confidence, greatly shaken, is apt to rush to the opposite extreme. The Gold Coast mining industry has many enemies and many unwise friends. The boom was, of course, thoroughly unjustified. The public lost their heads completely. Company after company was formed, a large proportion of which hardly knew where their territory lay, let alone whether it contained any gold. But the public did not care tuppence so long as it was a Gold Coast venture, and a great many rascals have done excellently well out of the British investor. Finally, this constant flotation of companies got to be in the nature of a scandal, and the governor of the Gold Coast, in a courageous speech, which has remained famous, before the local Chamber of Commerce, and for which Sir Matthew Nathan deserves the greatest possible credit, denounced the abuses which the movement was giving rise to. Mr. Chamberlain promptly endorsed the governor's views, and caused a public statement to be made which fell like a bombshell on the market riggers. Flotation of new companies after that was an almost impossible task, and the market received a staggering blow from which it has not yet recovered. There is pretty certain to be renewed activity at some not very distant day. Let us hope that the next time it will rest on something more tangible than fairy tales. That gold exists in the Gold Coast is demonstrated beyond a shadow of doubt. That it can be worked at a profit has yet to be satisfactorily proved, even in the case of the properties which are, or will be, in close proximity to the railway now in course of construction. For the purposes of illustration, the Gold Coast may be divided into three portions. First, where gold exists in such quantities, other conditions being favorable, that it is reasonable to believe the mines, if economically and wisely administered, will become dividend-producing. Secondly, where gold exists, but not in sufficient quantities, the conditions of mining in West Africa being what they are, to enable the mines ever to become dividend-paying. Thirdly, where no gold exists at all. Now, when it is borne in mind that options have been acquired by individuals pretty well all over the country, and companies have been formed to work those options, it will be easily understood that shares of a considerable number of existing companies are not worth the paper upon which they are inscribed. In my opinion, if Mr. Wallach's 321 companies were divided by 6, the residue would be an optimistic prophecy as to the number of Gold Coast mining companies existing 10 years hence. This number would be amply sufficient to allow of the Gold Coast to become, what I believe it will become, a gold-producing region of very considerable value. Personally, I am as equally convinced that some of the mines will become good dividend payers, as I am that the majority are rubbish. The two main difficulties which the mining industry in the Gold Coast have to face are climate and transport. The first is a very real difficulty, and the public would do well to treat with the utmost skepticism reports emanating from directors of Gold Coast companies, especially those whose properties are situate near the coast, who pooh-pooh the danger of the climate. If Major Ross's indefatigable efforts are backed up by the authorities and the mining companies, we shall see a better state of things before many years are past. But that the climate will always be an adverse element to contend against is positively certain. Those who say the contrary are not dealing honestly with the public. Many people imagine that transport difficulties will vanish when this crawling single line to Kumasi has been completed. Let those who are inclined to that belief study one of the excellent maps of the Gold Coast mines now available, and see how many of the properties, out of the total of companies floated, approximate sufficiently to the line to feel its usefulness. Before transport difficulties can be said to be overcome, the Gold Coast must be a network of railways. That may come, but the time is not yet by a very long way. The alleged labor difficulty I have dealt with elsewhere. It is largely fictitious, as the most reputable companies and the most experienced Europeans will bear witness. The boot, the stick, abuse, inadequate pay, dishonest dealing, so long as these incentives to labor exist on the Gold Coast, and they exist today, so long will certain people endeavor to make the British public believe that labor is improcurable in West Africa save by measures of coercion, or by Asiatic emigration, or by draining the other West African colonies of their able-bodied men. Decent wages, just treatment, tactful dealing, a high type of representative, the mining companies which supply these have not, and will not have, occasion to complain. The administration might play a useful part in imitating the French policy of obtaining labor for the Guinea Railway, viz. through the chiefs, and through them alone, and refuse to allow authorized or unauthorized recruiting agents. From the point of view of the investing public, those who contemplate putting any money into the Gold Coast mines should carefully weigh the difficulties mentioned against the counterbalancing reasons for optimism in the facts. 1. That some undoubted experts, and some men of undoubted integrity and ability who have a reputation to lose, have staked that reputation upon the existence of paying gold in the Gold Coast. 2. That a powerful corporation has undertaken a heavy liability in guaranteeing a certain sum for a number of years to the Gold Coast Railway. 3. That a very large sum of money has been sunk in the country for the purpose of mining enterprise. 4. That the past history of the Gold Coast is all in its favor. Finally, the investor should discriminate carefully between the companies and groups which are justifying, or honestly seeking to justify, their existence and those that are not. Approximate area and population of the British West African possessions. Gambia. Population, 14,260. Sierra Leone. Colony, 4,000 square miles, population, 136,000. Protectorate, 30,000 square miles, population, 750,000. Gold Coast. Gold Coast proper, 40,000 square miles, population, 1,500,000. Ashanti proper. Neither area nor population known. Northern Territories, 38,000 square miles, 311, population, 317,964, CO report, July 1902. Lagos. Colony, 3,460 square miles, population, 312, 1,500,000. Protectorate, 25,450 square miles, Nigeria. 500,000 square miles, population, 25 to 30 millions, 313. The Rabenek case, see Chapter 32. On October 27, Sir Charles Dilke, having asked the Under-Secretary for Foreign Affairs if he could say whether, in the Rabenek case, the prisoner was taken by the Congolese authorities from a British ship in British waters, and, if so, what course His Majesty's government proposed to adopt, Lord Cranborne, in a printed answer, said, "It is at present uncertain whether Mr. Rabenek was actually on board a British vessel when arrested, or whether the ship was at the time in British waters. Inquiries are, however, being made, and on receipt of definite information His Majesty's government will be in a position to consider what action should be taken in the matter." Since the above question by Sir Charles Dilke, the doubt as to the actual place of Mr. Rabenek's arrest has been removed. The Congo state authorities can no longer evade the point. Here is a copy of the procès-verbal d'arrestation, showing conclusively that Mr. Rabenek was arrested on board a British vessel. Procès-verbal d'arrestation. Lususign, Sirolia, Louis, sous-lieutenant de la Force Publique, commandant la colonne mobile du Tanganyika, stationné en Puerto, officier de police judiciaire, a procède le 15 mai 1901, à 3 heures de l'après-midi, à l'arrestation du Sieur Rabenek en exécution du mandat d'arrêt délivré le 17 décembre, 1900, à charge du dit Rabenek par le tribunal territorial d'Albertville. Le prénom est trouvé à bord du steamer Anglais Scotia, anchor dans le port d'Puerto. Le Sieur Rabenek a été remis à M. Chargwa FF du représentant du comité spécial du Katanga en Puerto. Fait en Puerto, le 15 mai 1901. Ls. Lieutenant Commandant la colonne mobile du Tanganyika. Sig. Sirolia. The British government has now a copy of the above. Footnotes: 1. Journal of the African Society, October 1901. 2. Among the principal exceptions may be mentioned gum arabic from Senegal, pepper, spices, and c. from the Guinea coast. 3. The totals here given do not, of course, include foreign and colonial merchandise shipped to British West Africa from British ports. 4. The total volume of trade, British and foreign and coastwise, in each of the West African colonies in the 5 years 1896 to 1900, including specie, has been as follows: Gambia 1,797,916 pounds, Sierra Leone 4,646,503, Gold Coast 10,393,850, Lagos 8,853,461, Niger Coast Protectorate, and for 1900, Nigeria 8,183,288, gross total 42,728,479 pounds. The trade of the former territories of the Niger Company, from 1896 to 1899 inclusive, is not reckoned in this total, no public figures being available. 5. The totals given are, of course, exclusive of foreign and colonial merchandise shipped to these foreign possessions from British ports. 6. Due to exceptional imports of coal and telegraph apparatus. 7. German imports, like British imports, are largely for re-exportation to other European and American ports. 8. The chief town in Borgu on which the Lugard and Dakur expeditions were directing their efforts. 9. Journal of the African Society, January 1902. 10. This document is published in extenso in the annual report of the Liverpool Chamber of Commerce for 1901. 11. The Foreign Office lost us the Cameroons, the French Congo littoral, Fouta-Djallon, and heaven knows what besides. In doing so it showed itself the indifferent servant of an indifferent public. 12. See, more particularly, Appendices and the chapter on the finances of Nigeria. 13. By the end of April 1900, says the report for southern Nigeria for 1900, 20 proclamations were passed. I should be afraid to say how many have been passed since. 14. The activity of the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine has been phenomenal, and the useful work performed by it is internationally recognized. To the splendid enterprise of Sir Alfred Jones, its initiator and president, is due the astonishingly strong financial position which the school has attained, entirely the outcome of private benevolence. 15. In the remarkable speech he made at the Lagos Literary Institute, the most able and statesmanlike oration ever delivered by a British official in West Africa, Sir William McGregor said in reference to the extension of the Lagos Railway, it would require probably not much greater expenditure than would a number of military campaigns, it would save many valuable lives to open up the country in that way, and it would leave a permanent valuable asset. In this the locomotive would be preferable to the Maxim. 16. That admirable German institution, the Colonial Wirtschaftliches Committee, Agricultural Committee, might also be imitated with advantage by our government. Attached to the German Colonial Society, the Agricultural Committee devotes its exclusive attention to a study of the economic resources of the German possessions, giving special notice to cocoa, rubber, gutta percha, cotton, and sea. Experts have been dispatched by the committee to the South Seas to study gutta percha, to the States for cotton, to Central and South America for cocoa, and sea. The committee is really composed of a trained body of agricultural and botanical specialists working in the joint interests of the government and the merchants. 17. M'Pain has lately been granted by King Leopold a huge concession in the Aruwimi region of the Congo state in connection with the promotion of a railway to the Great Lakes. 18. The London Chamber being mainly, although not exclusively, concerned with Gold Coast trade and mining developments. 19. It was entirely owing to the assistance of the African Association's agents that the people of the Niger Delta were induced to accept British protection and consular jurisdiction. By the merchants' good offices, Consuls Johnston and Hewitt were enabled to ascend the rivers to places where they would not have dared to enter unaccompanied by representatives of the merchants. 20. Chairman of the African Section. 21. Report of the Manchester Chamber of Commerce, 1900. 22. Messrs. Shelford's estimate is £7,000 per mile. But this cannot be reconciled with the amount expended. It leaves out of account the cost of bridges between Lagos Island and the mainland, which are part and parcel of the railway scheme. In March of this year the colony had already expended its loan of £1,053,700, which works out at £8,430 per mile. But although the railway has reached its present terminus it is not yet properly finished. Speaking in March, Sir W. McGregor foreshadowed a further expenditure of £60,000, and added, the probability is, however, that this will not be sufficient. On the same occasion the governor, reviewing the state of the colony, said that one of the two principal causes of anxiety was the difficulty experienced in getting the railway into working order. 23. French Guinea borrowed £480,000 at the rate of 4.1% and 4% respectively. 24. 14ths. 8d per head of the whole population of the territory. 25. Another incident of the kind is referred to by Sir W. McGregor in one of his speeches before the Legislative Council. Plans were sent home for a steam hopper or tramway to remove or fuse. The plans were rejected by the consulting engineers. The governor sarcastically remarked, "It is doubtful that any remedy that would cost less than £100,000 will ever be approved by the engineers." 26. The same belief was entertained, curiously enough, by the inhabitants of the Niger Basin itself even in Clapperton's day, as witness Sultan Bello's map, drawn for Clapperton at the latter's request, referred to farther on. 27. Lions subsequently gained Timbuktu from Merzuk, being the second European to visit the mysterious city. It has always remained an open question whether Hornman did not actually cross the desert and reach the Chad. Denham, indeed, believed that he did so, but no trace of the unfortunate German has ever been discovered from the time he left Merzuk, nearly a quarter of a century before Denham arrived there himself. 28. Kafir, i.e. unbeliever. 29. For instance, the Bahr el Ghazal, Bahr el Asraq, Bahr el Abayad, and c. all rivers. 30. Some authors consider the Hausas to be a branch of the Mandingo race. According to this theory, the Mandingos are the parent stock, and the Hausas, Songhais, Bambaras, and c. are all offshoots of the same great family. Although there would appear to be a certain basis of probability, especially as regards the Bambaras, in the plea of a common Mandingo origin, our historical and ethnological knowledge of the different races of West Africa, which is still in the embryonic stage, precludes anything in the nature of a positive assertion. 31. Subsequent to the final overthrow of the Berbers, under Kuzayla, by the Arabs in 688 AD, 32, historical account of the kingdom of Tekrour. By Sultan Muhammad Bello of Hussa. Denham and Clapperton. Volume 2, Appendix 13. 33, Hausaland. By the Reverend Charles Robinson. p. 179. 34. The House of Bokoi, or Seven States, as distinct from the Banza Bokoi or Bastard States, representing the 7 other provinces where the Hausa language had partly spread. 35. A Mission to Central Africa. By James Richardson. 1850-51, 36, Lanamite Maire de Longues. Lieutenant Colonel Fry. 1892, 37, Lieutenant Colonel Montile's Estimate, 1891. 38. For hours you may wander about noting industrial scenes like these, showing to what a length their advance in civilization has increased the wants of the people, and produced a necessary division of labor into weavers, dyers, blacksmiths, brass workers, saddle makers, tailors, builders, horseboys, agricultural laborers, domestic servants, shoemakers, shopkeepers, traders, and others. Joseph Thompson. In Good Words, 1886. 39. Leo Africanus tells us that Gober had a good trade and considerable industry, especially in leatherwork, beginning of 16th century. 40. Since the above was written, Mr. Consul Yago's report, number 578, on the trade and economic state of the Vilayet of Tripoli during the past 40 years has been published by the Foreign Office. It is a most interesting document. The consul gives a table of the value of Tripoli's trade with the Central Sudan states, Sokoto, Bornu, Wadai, for the period 1862 to 1901 as follows: 1862 to 71, £318,000, 1872 to 81, £1,846,300, 1882 to 91, £1,283,000, 1892 to 1901, £1,141,700, annual average, £114,725. 41. Consul Yago appears to favor this view. I venture to suggest that the paragraphs, pages 7 and 8, in which he refers to the point are open to criticism. Take, for instance, the cost of transport. Notwithstanding that, at first sight, the assertion may appear strange, I believe that, if anyone cares to take the trouble to work out the cost of transport of a ton of European merchandise from London to Kaka, 1. Via Tripoli and by caravan across the desert, 2. Via Burutu, the Niger, and overland, the former route will be found the cheaper of the two. Things do not always appear to be what they are in Africa. If France can come to a working understanding with the Senussis, the caravan trade will revive. 42. According to Lieutenant Colonel Pilcher, who commanded the West African Frontier Force in 1898, the Hausa is more quarrelsome than the Yoruba or Nupe, gets into trouble more often, and is not so quick at picking up drill or musketry. Colonial Office Report, No. 260, West African Frontier Force, June 1899. Other officers eulogize the Hausas, and among military men they are, I think, believed to be superior fighters to either the West Indian or Mendi Negro, while about equaling the Yoruba. The Negro seems to fight more fiercely and recklessly when he has Islam to fall back upon. 43. Geographie Universelle, Livre 12. Page 587. 1887, 44, The Colonization of Africa, page 282. 1899, 45, Narrative of a Mission to Central Africa. 46, The Language of Bornu. 47, Magana Hausa. By J. F. Sean, D.D., FRGS, 48, Hausaland, or 1,500 miles through the Central Sudan. 1897, 49, Specimens of Hausa Literature. A Hausa Grammar. A Hausa English Dictionary. The Gospel of St. John in Hausa. 50, full details are supplied in Canon Robinson's book. 51, apart from the question whether the Hausas can claim to have attempted the production of a literature any more than the Fulani or Kanuri, there remains the fact, which goes to confute Canon Robinson's somewhat sweeping generalization, that the language of the Tuareg, the Tamashek, has been reduced to literature in Tamashek characters, and that both sexes among the Tuareg are regularly instructed therein. 52, Kanuri Proverbs and Kanuri English Vocabulary. By the Reverend S. N. Cole. On page 9 of the introduction to his book, Cole speaks of the system of orthography followed by him as that of Professor Lepsius, of Berlin, in the pamphlet entitled Standard Alphabet for Reducing Unwritten Languages and Foreign Graphic Systems to a Uniform Orthography in European Letters. 53, Bakey gives 9 Hausa dialects, viz., Kachina, the purest and best, 2, Kano, 3, Gober, 4, Dor, 5, Zamfara, 6, Zuzu, 7, Barantagobaz, 8, Kabi, 9, Shira, or Shura. Narrative of an Exploring Voyage Up the Rivers Kwara and Benue. By William Balfour Bakey. 1856, 54, it is found in French Guinea, north of Sierra Leone, but is not there the staple product, rubber taking its place. 55, southern Nigeria, or rather the Niger Delta, is commonly known as the rivers. 56, the figures for 1900 include the whole of Nigeria, that is, the former Niger Company's territories in the lower Niger, and the Niger Coast Protectorate, now incorporated into southern Nigeria. 57, Edom. 58, Germany has a protective tax on kernel or other foreign crushed oil, which enables her to keep the home market to herself, and she has made a profitable use of the cake for feeding cattle, whilst our farmers, largely, I understand, through the operation of the tenant right conditions of tenure, or perhaps through mere prejudice, refuse to use it to any extent. 59, in Senegal and the Gambia the groundnut industry, which is also essentially a native industry, takes its place, the number of palm trees in those possessions being very scanty, not worth mentioning, in fact. 60, it is also used for lubricating mixtures for the axles of railway carriages. 61, giving out trust is not invariably confined to the European. Native chiefs have been known to give trust to Europeans up to 1,000 cases of palm oil, in days, too, when palm oil was worth £15 per puncheon. This would represent a credit of £15,000. 62, in point of fact, palm oil from the Congo district is the richest in stearine. 63, the first West African kernels were imported in 1860 by Mr. A. Mackenzie Smith and the late Mr. Charles Lane, of Liverpool. The old Calabar district led the way in southern Nigeria. The trade was begun there in a small way in 1864. Benin was the next place in southern Nigeria to follow suit, and by 1867 the trade was fairly large. By 1880 the trade had spread to the other rivers, New Calabar, Bonny, Brass, and Opobo. 64, the average crushing of the African oil mills is, I believe, about 600 tons weekly. 65, the exception is the machine erected at the Brass River in 1877, by the Count de Cardi, I believe, and used to this day by the firm which has the principal trade of this district. It can produce, I believe, 40 or 50 bags of clean kernels per day of 10 hours. It would require 600 or 700 pairs of hands to give this result in the same time. 66, I am given to understand that efforts to use hand-crushing machines are being made by a merchant firm in French Guinea. 67. An interesting account of this most valuable experiment is given by M. Pierre Mill in the Journal of the African Society for October 1901. 68. Various types of hand plows are now being experimented with in Senegal for the purpose of quickening production. See Journal d'Agriculture Tropicale, September 1901. 69. Many people, on the other hand, will consider the somewhat elaborate judicial machinery set up in northern Nigeria as distinctly premature. The administration of English law in West African protectorates, see page 16, Northern Nigeria report, even when modified by native law and custom, is a feature of the Crown Colony system which has little to recommend it. Dr. Ballet's plan in French Guinea was infinitely preferable. In all matters affecting the relations of natives with natives, Ballet insisted that native law should be the basis. He declined to introduce all the technicalities of European law among a people whose own laws are founded upon just principles, and, given security in their application, work effectively and well. 70. August 1, 1891. It was first called consular jurisdiction. 71. Sir Ralph Moore has since declared that southern Nigeria is in a very sound financial position. The test of sound finance must be different in West Africa from any other part of the world. 72. Colonial Office Report, No. 315. 73. In that year southern Nigeria spent £30,196 on military expenses and £8,236 only on the Aborigines Department. Under political and administrative expenses, £20,327 was absorbed. Under Marine Department, £32,531, £24,654 only was spared for public works, but prisons necessitated £7,200, against £1,171 under botanical and £1,147 under sanitary. 74. In 1890 the value of exports from the Delta was estimated at over £1,300,000. 75. The Noop campaign was undertaken after great provocation, and is understood to have been carried out with the approval, tacit or avowed, of the Emir of Sokoto, who had reason to complain of the Emir of Noop's conduct. 76. Similarly, Noop refused to have anything to do with Herr von Puttkamer in 1889 without consulting the company, although the German, or his interpreter, passed himself off as the Queen of England's messenger. 77. Northern Nigeria. 78. The foundation of British East Africa. 79. Colonial Report, No. 346, page 11, par. 2. 80. Lord John Russell's instructions to Captain Henry Dundas Trotter, Commander William Allen, Commander Bird Allen, and William Cook, Esquire, commissioners for making and concluding agreements with the chief rulers of the western coast of Africa for the suppression of the traffic in slaves and the establishment of a lawful commerce, 1840. 81. The absence of any wish to act otherwise on the part of the native is invariably assumed in Europe, and but too often by Europeans in Africa. In this connection the following passage from Clapperton, when traveling in Nigeria, is worth noting. It was with feelings of the highest satisfaction that I listened to some of the most respectable of the merchants, when they declared that, were any other system of trading adopted, they would gladly embrace it in preference to dealing in slaves. 82. Archibald Constable and Company 1898. 83. Not to be confounded with the King of Benin who massacred Consul General Phillips. 84. Referring to domestic slavery in the northern territories of the Gold Coast, the late Lieutenant Colonel Northcote, C.B., whose death was a sad blow to the Empire and to West Africa particularly, in his report on those territories, Report on the Northern Territories of the Gold Coast, published by the Intelligence Division of the War Office in 1899, says, "The everyday life of slaves differs in no respect from that of the free men. Ground is allotted to them, on which they are free to work for their own benefit, the rule generally being that they may take 2 days out of every 5 for work on their own account. With the accumulated results of this labor they are at liberty to purchase their freedom. The price demanded is not excessive, and ranges from £2 to £5, according to locality, but so lightly does the yoke of slavery bear that only a comparatively small proportion seek their emancipation by this means. Slaves may marry, and are encouraged to do so, the children becoming the property of the master. The apparent hardship of liability to sale is in reality not oppressive. The march to the new owner's place of abode is free from any suggestion of cruelty or force. The slave partakes of his master's food and shares his lodging, and he is certain of kind treatment on arriving at his destination. 85. This is Pidgin English, the Hausa for ivory tusk, i.e. piece of ivory, being Hakaran, or Hawan Jiwa. 86. Named in honor of Park, who is supposed to be the first European to have noticed it. 87. And Lagos again since the opening of the railway. 88. Up to the present, however, shipments of this prepared latex have met with scant success. 89. In the report of the Sierra Leone Company, London, James Phillips, printer, 1794, the following passage occurs, which most probably refers to the Penditesma butyraki. Butter and tallow tree. This is common in low lands about Freetown. It abounds with a juice resembling gamboge in taint and durability, which exudes after the least laceration, and becomes more coagulated, viscous, and of a darker color. The wood of this tree is firm, and seems adapted to various economical purposes. The fruit is nearly oval, about twice the size of a man's fist, the rind is thick, pulpy, and of a pleasant acid. In the inside are found from 5 to 9 seeds of the size of the walnut, containing an oleaginous matter, extracted by the natives and used with their rice and other food. A gentleman of my acquaintance who knows this tree, tells me he has seen it growing in Sierra Leone, so that there seems no reason why experiments similar to those undertaken in French Guinea should not be made in our colony, which adjoins that French possession. 90. Known as piassava in the trade. Large quantities are imported from Liberia. It is used in brush making. 91. Beni seeds crushed yield a fine edible oil. 92. On the right bank of the Benue, in the Michi or Munchi country. 93. Stone potash used to be a monopoly of the Agaras, who sold it to the downriver tribes, but the Niger Company has taken the monopoly from the Agaras of late years and disposes of it at Lagos, realizing, it is said, considerable profit, from 2 to 300%. 94. He will sometimes cut the vine down and chop it into pieces of about 1 foot in length the more readily to extract the sap. 95, or even 20%. 96. There are many other ways of preparing rubber, this is one of them. 97. A short account of the invasion of Hausa by the Fulas. By Bashima, a Hausa Fulani, in the Magana Hausa, J.F. Sean. 1815, 98, about 1840. 99, and by no one so well as Joseph Thompson, Mungo Park and the Niger. 100. Othman established the severest punishment upon whoever committed the slightest violation of the law. Travels of Sheikh Muhammad of Tunis, Bell St. John. London, 1854. 101. One of the numerous designations of the Fulani. 102. Journal of a Second Expedition into the Interior of Africa, N.C. 1829. 103. Under the old Hausa regime the inhabitants of the northern Hausa states paid direct taxes to the kings. According to the curious and interesting records of Asad el-Haji Abd Salam Shabani, a Tunisian merchant, the Sultan of Hausa imposed a tax of 2% on all products of the land. The people also paid a land tax, and certain duties were exacted on all goods sold in the marketplace. Relation d'un voyage à Timbuktu vers l'année 1787. 104. A missionary has recently admitted that to the Hausa what is in the Quran is of God, and what is not in the Quran is not worth knowing. 105. Today, Guinea Française. 106. This is explained by the unwillingness of the Fulani to allow unions between their womenfolk and their Negro neighbors. 107. Recently translated into French by M.O. Houdas, Paris, Ernest Leroux. 1900. 108. Leo Africanus. 109. At one time Mel ruled over Songhai and Timbuktu. In 1329 the Melians were driven from Timbuktu by the pagan Moses, the most powerful pagan kingdom which ever arose in West Africa. The people of Mel reconquered the place, but were finally expelled by the Tuareg in 1433. Mel was subsequently overcome by the Songhai and fell to pieces. 110. Published by the Hakluyt Society. 111. We are indebted to M. Du Bois for the first complete copy. 112. The reigning family says the Tariq were white and their subjects Wakoris, Mandingos. This strengthens the Fulani argument, the complexion of the pure-blood Fulani inclining to white by comparison with their neighbors. In his Notice géographique sur la région du Sahel, which includes Bakunu, the former Bagina, Commandant Lartigue says of the Fulani still inhabiting that district, quelques uns sont presque blancs, leurs chevaux sont à peine crépus, et ils ont les traits fins et réguliers de Européens de bonne race. 113. The language of the Fulani. 114. The empire which, as we have observed, was raised upon the ruins of Granada by the Mandingos, the subject race at the time of the latter's foundation. 115. Dike de les Assertion, les Folas. Paris, 1842, that the Fulani to this day call the whole of Senegambia Meli, I do not find confirmed, but it is worth mentioning, nevertheless. 116. The first map in which Mel figures is a Spanish one, 1375 AD. In the map of Matthias de Villadestes, the Venetian, 1413 AD, the word Tukuzar is written by the side of that of the king of Meli, Musa. For Tukuzar read Tukular, the cross race of Fulani Jollof and Fulani Mandingo da. Considerations sur la priorité de découvertes maritimes sur la côte occidentale d'Afrique. Binger. 117. Barth's chronological table of the Songhai. 118. Marmel, born in Granada, 1580, translated by Nicolas Perrault d'Ablancourt. 119. The Tariq statement that Salta Tayenda fled into Futa affords substantial indication of the presence of Fulani in that country at a previous date, which we know, of course, from other sources. 120. This tradition obviously refers to Fulani pressure, the root of the word, pool, or full, signifying red, or reddish. 121. A correspondent of a Paris paper, La Dépêche Coloniale, writing from Kundi, on the Sunga River, on December 10, 1901, says, "Our clothes, which are ragged from bush traveling, do not convey a great idea of our influence, especially when compared to the Fulbs, Fulani, in their embroidered cloths and leather riding boots. They are all on horseback and we are on foot. There are thousands of them, and all are armed." 122. Their presence in Omdurman, that is to say, in the heart of the eastern Sudan in the Nile Valley, has already been noted by Father Orwalder. On page 300 of 10 Years' Captivity in the Mahdi's Camp, Major Wingate, R.A. London, 1895, we read, several of the Felada, who came from distant parts of Bornu, Wadai, and C, were stopped at Omdurman on their way to Mecca, and again, on page 305, the inhabitants of Omdurman are a conglomeration of every race and nationality in the Sudan, Felada, Takruris, natives of Bornu, and C. 123. Dr. Barth's estimate as to the date of the foundation of Granada is certainly not exaggerated, in view of the Tariq statement that 22 kings had reigned before the Hejra. 124. Ernest Flammarion, Paris. English edition, W. Heinemann. 125. Toledo was wrested from the Moors in 1085, Saragossa in 1118, Valencia, 1238, Seville, 1248, the Beni Nasser held Granada until 1492. 126. De Barros, Barth, Tariq. 127. Macrezy, De Barros, Barth. 128. L'Anthropologie, Tome X, No. 6, of which Dr. Verneau is one of the editors. 129. In plain language, a prominence of the jaws, one of the characteristics of the Negro type. 130. Dr. Randall McIver and Anthony Wilkin, in Libyan Notes. Macmillan and Company 1901. 131. Concubinage with negresses being the natural explanation. 132. Other authorities, basing their arguments, inter alia, upon the assumption that the wild people covered with hair encountered by the Carthaginian colonists were none other than the gorillas which Duchelu, more than 2,000 years afterwards, brought to the knowledge of an incredulous world, and upon the unlikelihood of any of those animals being in Hanno's day so far north, maintained that the expedition reached the Gabon estuary, or even the mouth of the Congo. The point is never likely to be cleared up. The two sides are stated with great clearness by the late Miss Kingsley in West African Studies. Macmillan and Company. 133. Lest it be supposed that I am appropriating other people's ideas without acknowledgement, I hasten to add that Major Rennell, in his notes on Park's travels in the interior of Africa, London, 1799, hazards the same suggestion, and Barth and Fry follow suit. But I think that, in the light of our further knowledge of the peoples and history of Western Africa, the identification of the Luca-Ethiops with the Fulani becomes a good deal more than a suggestion. 134. The cattle possessed by the Fulani, who are the herdsmen of West Africa, are the humpbacked Asiatic kind, Bos indicus. That was a great point with Faidherbe in favor of the Eastern theory. The Abyssinians' cattle, it may be observed, belong to the same breed. 135. Then Joseph came and told Pharaoh, and said, My father and my brethren, and their flocks, and their herds, and all that they have, are come out of the land of Canaan, and, behold, they are in the land of Goshen. 136. Cattle rearer. 137. An account of the native Africans in the neighborhood of Sierra Leone. By Thomas Winterbottom, D.D., physician to the colony of Sierra Leone. 1803. 138. The Jolloffs, Senegal, declare that the Fulani converse habitually with their cattle. 139. Moore, writing of the Gambia Fulani in the 18th century, says, they manage cattle so well that the Mandingos give them their own to look after. 140. Native cavalry soldier. 141. Related in the French African Committee's Journal. 142. De Giraudin was, apparently, unaware of this passage, which has an important bearing upon his statements. 143. Not pear-shaped, as with the negress. 144. Barth, Bakey, Gray, Monteil, Mullion, de Giraudin, Cali, and C. vie with one another in their enthusiasm over the beauty of the Fulani woman of pure blood, which is all the more pronounced in view of their ethnic surroundings. Barth speaks of young Fulani girls whose forms recall the finest Grecian sculpture. The women are very beautiful, and possess strange powers of fascination in their large deep eyes, says Monteil. The women in particular, remarks Gray, might vie in point of figure with the finest forms in Europe, and their walk is particularly majestic. The Fulani women, many of whose countenances are resplendent with a veritable beauty, reckless. 145. West Africa. 146. Ibid. 147. Witness, for example, the admirable work on land tenure on the Ivory Coast just published by Administrator Clozel, also that gentleman's article in the Journal of the African Society for July. 148. I have not yet heard of any departure from the rule. 149. Modern ideas and legislation, says Dr. Alfred Zimmermann, forbid violent proceedings. The natives should be taught to work by cultivating the sentiment in them that it is their interest to do so. Experience proves that protection of property is the surest means to attain that end. 150. Paul Coleman's The Victoria Nyanza may be consulted in this connection with advantage. The illustrations of domestic ornaments, of flasks, bark boxes, drums, and sea, constructed by the natives of Usukuma and Ukuru show real beauty of design. 151. Sir Marshall Clark's recent report is instructive. Speaking of the natives of Rhodesia, he says, they work in the mines either from direct pressure brought to bear upon them by the administration, a pressure only short of force, or the necessity of earning enough to pay their taxes. This, continues Sir Marshall Clark, does not tend to make industry attractive, and, he adds, at present there is undoubtedly discontent among the natives. 152. The evidence available seems to indicate that the labor difficulty on the Gold Coast may probably be overcome without the importation of laborers from other countries, and that success or failure in the matter is largely dependent on the person in charge of the undertaking. It is very desirable that the persons in charge should be gentlemen and men of education, as it is found that such are more likely to be able to deal satisfactorily with the natives, who generally require to be handled with much tact and judgment. Par. 9. Labor Ordinance, issued by Colonial Office. 153. According to native ideas there is no land without owners. What is now a forest or unused land will, as years go on, come under cultivation by the subjects of the stool, or members of the village community, or other members of the family. Fanti customary law, J.M. Sarbaugh. What holds good in the Gold Coast is equally applicable to the rivers and to Lagos, indeed throughout West Africa, wherever Negro culture is met with. 154. In order, of course, to do away with the idea that there is any wish or desire on the part of the government to alienate the land from the rightful owners thereof. 155. The amended Lagos Bill exempts from its operation native customary rights and defers to the authority of the native councils of the hinterland. Its working depends largely, therefore, upon the interpretation placed by the colony's governor for the time being on the nature of the relationship between those councils and the administration. Sir W. McGregor has passed a bill, the Native Councils Bill, which, he thinks, will strengthen the position of the councils. But it is safe to say that, in all matters affecting land legislation in West Africa, the procedure for safeguarding native rights, and in their main lines those rights themselves, should be laid down as clearly as possible in the Act itself. 156. For an intelligent native view on the subject, the reader is referred to the speeches of Dr. O. Johnson, member of the Legislative Council of Lagos, in moving the rejection of the amended Forest Ordinance, May 1902. Dr. Johnson's status in the colony may be estimated from the fact that the extraordinarily able historical address on the native history of Lagos, delivered by him at the Lagos Institute last year, was published as a government paper in the colony. 157. Who, for some time past, has individually done much to stimulate cotton growing for export in West Africa. 158. In the manifesto issued by the association in October there figures a list of vice presidents, headed by Sir Alfred Jones, KCMG, and including no less than 22 members of Parliament, among whom one notices such well-known names as Winston S. Churchill, R. Yerburgh, Alfred Emmett, Sir William Mather, Lord Stanley, the Honourable Arthur Stanley, the Honourable W. R. W. Peel, C. A. Cripps, K.C.J. H. Whitley, Sir J. Lee, and C. 159, Maloney. 160, Secretary of the Manchester Chamber of Commerce. 161, the cotton-producing capacities of northern Nigeria have already been commented upon. 162, the Deutsche Togo-Gesellschaft. 163, and as with cotton, so with rice, the Songhais were great rice growers, and Gao, or Gago, their ancient capital, is said to mean rice in the Songhai language. 164. Sir Alfred Jones has voluntarily offered to carry cotton from West Africa freight-free for 2 years, and I understand that Mr. Warman, of the line of that name, has agreed to ship a considerable quantity of Togo cotton free of charge. 165. And where the enterprise has been carried out on the household labor plan, which has been compared to the peasant proprietary system. 166. Chemical manure has been supplied free by manufacturers of the article. An exhibit of cloths manufactured with Togo cotton has been held at Dusseldorf, and c. 167. Sir H. Johnston's and Mr. Grogan's discoveries have recently emphasized this fact. 168. Now southern Nigeria. 169, and, say the merchants engaged in the trade, to high freights. 170, the American demand is, I understand, increasing. 171, CO Report, number 348. 172, for a technical explanation read the following: the extremely high prices obtained here for figured logs have naturally excited shippers, especially native traders, and all are desirous to learn what constitutes figure. This is a subject difficult to elucidate, but we may say that rho may be described as the curved direction the grain of the wood takes by one ring overlapping the other. To be of any value, beyond ordinary plain wood, it must be of a very pronounced and bold character. This gives the required variation of light and shade. 173. The conversion of several hundred natives to Islam at Jebuod, one of the large Yoruba centers in close proximity to Lagos, and where the church has labored for years, is a recent incident which points in the direction stated. 174. Tariq. 175. Kanem at the time ruled over what was known later as Bornu. 176. Makrizi attributes the introduction of Islam into Kanem to Hadi el-Othman, who was probably of Fulani origin, although Makrizi does not say so. 177. Timbuktu was not founded until about 70 years after the conversion of Zakasai. 178. The theory which gives an Eastern origin to Mohammedan proselytism in Kanem seems unworthy of consideration. 179. The manatee is the Au of the Fulani, and its signification, viz. that of a mythical creature living in the water and dragging anyone in who sees it, seems to argue the existence of an ancient superstition. In various parts of the Niger and Benue this strange animal is still regarded with a certain awe, which, however, does not prevent it from being slaughtered, both for its flesh and skin. The Sonink legend of the water serpent, which each year claimed the handsomest girl of the village as a victim, would seem to bear a distinct relation to this, the former Au worship of the Songhais. 180. Binger suggests that the word Mande, or Mandingo, is derived from the same root as Manatus, and signifies the people of a country where the Manatus is worshipped. 181. Mungo Park. Joseph Thomson. The World's Greatest Explorers series. 182. Palgrave's Arabia, Volume 1, page 372. 183. Niger and Yoruba Notes, January 1900. 184. A native of the Western Sudan. 185. Blyden. 186. It has been pointed out to me that the Muslim teachers in this mosque do not teach reading, but only the slate pattern. That simply shows that Islam in West Africa is capable of being much improved, and should be molded, if possible, on Western lines of thought, but it does not affect the main argument in the least. 187. Captain Morrison's report, issued by the government of the French Sudan. 188. For instance, read the following passages in Pilkington of Uganda, cf. Harford Battersby. This is the lost truth, the loss of which gave Satan the opportunity of introducing both Mohammedanism and popery. They, the Waganda, have learned to contend with the three forms of darkness which they will meet in Africa: heathenism, Mohammedanism, and popery. And again, does it not seem as if the French mission is just God's appointed instrument to complete the confusion of Rome in Uganda? 189. Le Chatelier. 190. The 19th century. 191. The 19th century. 192. It is a remarkable fact, frequently borne witness to, that an unarmed Muslim Negro can travel without molestation through vast stretches of country in Africa, a privilege denied to his Christianized compatriot. 193. Esclavage, Islamism, et Christianism. 194. Affecting in many parts the laws and customs of the people in respect to native land tenure. 195. Le Sénégal, La France dans l'Afrique occidentale. 196. Negro medical men, I mean qualified medical men, of whom there are a few in West Africa, emphatically corroborate this, and they bring a great many arguments, founded upon actual experience, in support of the contention. 197. An ecclesiastic well known in the African field, and for whose really wonderful labors I entertain the highest respect and admiration, informed me only the other day that, within his personal cognizance, over 150 couples had been married in Liberia by a certain minister, in a certain district, within a period of 5 years, and that the total number of births up to date was 5, and the survivals 2. My reverend friend found in that striking fact, for the truth of which he vouched, and he is a truthful man, a justification of his view that a large proportion of Liberians, that is to say, the descendants of the blacks from the States, led indolent and unhealthy lives. To my mind, it conveys an eloquent demonstration, that on West African soil monogamy for the Negro spells race extinction. Naturally my friend would not admit the conclusion, although in his heart of hearts I believe he is rather troubled on the subject. But he recognized, and admitted, in course of conversation that polygamy was a question which the Church, in her work among tropical peoples, had now to resolutely face and earnestly discuss. There is, I fear, no doubt that the monogamist, or professing monogamist, Liberians are, like the Waganda, dying out. 198. Politically, the same attitude is adopted by the British authorities, and in the case of the Sierra Leone Hut Tax War, and the forest ordinances in Lagos, it has been sought to divorce the educated, and mainly, professing Christian, element of the coast from community of thought, sympathy, and common racial feelings with the non-educated, and mainly pagan or Mohammedan, element of the interior. 199, as soon as half a dozen missionaries leave Liverpool, writes the same authority, Archbishop Dobson, no end of a stir is made about the devoted party, and so forth. I do not mean to be sarcastic about the missionaries, but it does make one a trifle ashamed at times to meet a stalwart trader hereabouts on an occasion, who has been coming here off and on for 20 years, and his chief business is palm oil, and his best view a mangrove swamp. 200. It is even admitted to be harmful by Sir Alfred Jones, whose steamers carry a large proportion of this liquor to West Africa, and by a large proportion of the merchants who deal in it. The merchants are sometimes violently attacked on account of this trade. Personally, I detest the West African liquor traffic. I look upon it in the same light as the opium traffic in the Far East, a blot upon the escutcheon of Christian Europe. But those who denounce the merchants might just as well, and more logically, denounce the governments. Per se, the liquor traffic is not a lucrative trade to the merchant, but to the local administrations on the coast it is the backbone of revenue. I was never able to share the late Miss Kingsley's views on this subject, while fully agreeing with her as to the inanity of making the merchants the scapegoats of an evil the responsibility for which is, in a sense, universal. Despite anything that may be said to the contrary, I shall believe that a powerful factor in determining Miss Kingsley's views was the knowledge that, but for the existence of the liquor traffic as a supplier of revenue, direct taxation would be substituted throughout British West Africa owing to the extravagance of the Crown Colony system. And I know that Miss Kingsley strongly objected to the introduction of European spirits into the interior regions by means of the railways. The liquor question would require a special chapter to adequately discuss. 201. He will, no doubt, be edified to learn that the Cape government has found it necessary to pass a law imposing a severe term of imprisonment upon white women convicted of sexual intercourse with the natives, a circumstance not precisely calculated to increase his respect for our Christian civilization. 202. Captain, now Commandant, Binger has for some little time past been in charge of the African department of the French Colonial Office. His travels, books, and pamphlets are familiar to every student of Western Africa. 203. It would seem now that they have temporarily prevailed with the government. 204. In the Sokoto Empire, Hausa states, more particularly. 205. They did it so well that, after the failure of their attack upon the French camp, they denuded the country of supplies and reduced the expedition to terrible straits for a time. 206. The fall predicted, and officially foreseen, in 1901 has come about, owing to the rubber crisis. The measures taken during the last 15 months to stimulate fresh industries in the country, and the advance of the railway, will, no doubt, make themselves felt in the next 2 or 3 years. 207. For the Lagos exports and expenditure, see Appendix. 208. CO Report. 1900, 209, Rapport d'ensemble. Dahomey, 1900. 210, for 1902, on a total estimated expenditure of £121,560, Dahomey provides £32,000 for the railway and £11,911 for public works ordinary or, say, a total of £43,911 for railway and public works. 211. The following statistics of the export trade of Dahomey, compiled from figures recently obtained, are interesting. Quantities in kilos. 1,015 kilos to the ton. Palm kernels. Palm oil. 1898 18,091,312 6,059,539 1899 21,850,982 9,650,081 1900 21,986,043 8,920,350 9/1901 24,211,614 11,290,658 First quarter 1902 6,972,297 3,488,766 IBID 1901 4,768,051 993,520 212 See Appendix 213. It is worthy of note that the French government authorizes the administration of the several West African colonies to make their own agreements for railway construction. 214. So far as the heavier duties charged on spirits in Lagos are concerned, the fact is distinctly to the credit of Lagos. 215. There is a very curious circumstance connected with the groundnut trade. All the groundnuts go to the continent, both from Senegal and Gambia. The oil extracted therefrom, or the bulk of it, is used in making margarine, which is subsequently consumed, to a very large extent, by the English people. Why have we not our own crushing mills? Is it because we are short of milk? It cannot but strike one as peculiar and unfortunate that we should send our West African groundnuts to France, and afterwards buy from the French the oil the nuts yield for our own consumption. Groundnuts will grow anywhere in West Africa, and the labor involved in cultivating them is very small. 216. Belgian syndicates have been trying, and are still trying, to get hold of the French Ivory Coast goldfields. Hitherto they have been defeated by the vigilance of the French merchants, but there is no knowing what may happen in view of the extraordinary influence which King Leopold appears to wield over the French official world. 217. Sir de Traces Probables de Civilisation Egyptienne et des Hommes de Race Blanche à la Côte d'Ivoire. Masson and C., Paris. A pamphlet which ought to be read by all students of West Africa. 218. Specie is usually included in the trade figures, a very misleading practice. 219. Sir David Chalmers' report, page 169. 220. Like the Susus, for example, who are very numerous in French Guinea, but of whom a few only have settled in the British protectorate adjoining. 221. Let it not be imagined that the contrast here made between French political action in Dahomey and British political action in Ashanti implies approval of direct taxation per assi. It is ever a dangerous experiment in West Africa, especially with pagans, even if conquest has supervened. If the system under which the taxes are collected is not carefully watched, grave abuses are almost certain to follow. Quite recently rumors of oppression in the taxation of the natives in Upper Dahomey have appeared in the French press. What truth there may be in them I do not know. But it is true, I believe, that the excellent staff whom Governor Ballet gathered round him has left the colony since Ballet left it, and has been replaced by less experienced and less competent material. 222. Last Ashanti Blue Book, 1902. 223. See note in Appendix. 224. See the evidence of Lieutenant Colonel Gore, Colonial Secretary for Sierra Leone. Sir David Chalmers' report. 225. Between July 1894 and February 1898 no fewer than 62 convictions, admittedly representing a small proportion of offences actually committed, were recorded against them for flogging, plundering, and generally maltreating the natives. 226. One of the pet arguments of the authorities consists in invoking the benefits which have accrued to the people of the Protectorate since the passing of the Protectorate Ordinance in the matter of putting down the slave trade. For these benefits the natives, says officialdom, ought to be delighted to pay a tax. Possibly they would have paid it in time, more or less willingly, had they been approached in a different spirit. But, so far as the slave trade is concerned, the argument is singularly weakened by the circumstance that Sir F. Cardew publicly declared in 1895 that the slave traffic had practically disappeared within the Protectorate. 227. The French West African Company, C. Française de l'Afrique Occidentale, is the largest French firm of African merchants in West Africa. Founded in 1887 with a capital of 7 million francs, total turnover in 1899, 22 million francs, factories in Senegal, French and Portuguese Guinea, Gambia, Sierra Leone, Lagos, and Ivory Coast. 228. In 1900, 39,874,005 francs, in 1901, 43,965,950 francs. 229, the same game was tried with the Germans in Cameroons. To quote from an article in the National Zeitung, which, as I have reason to know, may be accepted as authorized, if in the Congo state itself the Berlin Act could be disregarded in this way, and the natives obliged to bring in the produce against their will, why could it not also be done in other places? And as the Congo state was itself making the best use of its monopoly, and only gave concessions to others at high prices, the monopolists tried, and not without result, to obtain the same state of affairs both in France and in Germany. In Germany, the German colonial society at once protested against this state of affairs. In spite of this, however, several of the Belgian capitalists were able to obtain the help of influential German persons, who obtained from the government the concession of South Cameroon. This company had obtained the assistance of Colonel Thies for its operations on the Brussels Stock Exchange, and immediately after the flotation of the company the shares were driven up to 2 or 3 times their value. Further concessions in the free trade zone were not conceded, and, with the exception of the Northwest Cameroon concession, in consequence of the energetic opposition in colonial circles, no further concessions were, or will be, made in the German territories. The German government has entirely abandoned this policy of concessions. 230. It is, of course, no easy matter to get at the precise constitution of these companies, but the following example of one of the groups is typical of the majority of them. Comptoir Colonial Français. Parent company, head offices, Paris, has founded at least 6 concessionaire companies, of a total capital of 9,650,000 francs, Board of Administration numbers 6 directors, of whom 3 are Belgians, 2/3 of the shares held in Belgium. 2 of the Belgian directors are directors of the 4 domain prive companies in the Congo state, whose profits are shared by the state. Read the King. The 3rd also belongs to the Congo clique. Among the Belgian shareholders are other directors of these same domain prive companies, all men enjoying the confidence of, and closely connected with, the sovereign of the Congo state. One of the 6 concessionaire companies of this group has specially distinguished itself in the persecution to which British merchants have been subjected, discussed in the next chapter. 231. Some light has been thrown upon its African chapters by Mr. R. E. Dennett, an Englishman in French Congo, and a recognized authority on the Fuart peoples, in West Africa. 232, I should say now, ex-deputy. 233. Une idée domine l'ensemble du système, tous les produits du territoire, concede quels qu'ils soient, sans la propriété de la société concessionnaire. Sols les agents de cette société ont le droit de les reculer au lieu de les acteurs de indigènes que les ont récoltés, ces derniers ne peuvent disposer librement que de produits de réserves que leur ont été spécialement attribués et sur lesquels j'y reviendrai, et devant and these généraux, lorsqu'ils apparent d'un produit quelconque du sol en dehors de ces réserves. Les remetteurs aux concessionnaires dont l'intérêt bien entendu, est de rémunérer ainsi leur travail. 234. Les indigènes ont droit aux superficies que leur sont nécessaires pour les cultures vivrières correspondant aux besoins de leur alimentation. On peut leur attribuer un certain étendue de forêt nécessaire à leurs besoins de chauffage et de construction, mais ils n'ont pas droit de réclamer de forêts domaniales dans lieu but de faire commerce de leurs produits naturels et de constituer ainsi une concurrence ruineuse pour le concessionnaire. Art. 18. 235. The French government has recently voted de Brazza an annual pension of 10,000 francs. 236. Concessions Congolaises. By Albert Cousin, member du Conseil supérieur de colonies. Paris, Augustin Calomel. 237. An English trader, Mr. Walker, was the first to do so. He is admitted by French writers to have discovered the agao. 238. Messrs. John Holt and Company and Messrs. Hatton and Cookson, both of Liverpool, and both connected with the West African trade for upwards of half a century. Mr. John Holt is probably the most enterprising pioneer of Britain's trade in West Africa, possessing trading stations in most of the British and foreign West African colonies. He is the vice-chairman of the African Trade Section of the Liverpool Chamber of Commerce, and very few men living have so wide a grasp of West African questions or so profound a knowledge of West African problems. 239, whose existence was unknown in England until towards the end of last year. 240, seizure of British goods on public roads, breaking open of British factories, flogging of British native agents, and c. 241, notably that most excellent monthly, Le Bulletin du Comité de l'Afrique française, through the instrumentality of the two distinguished thinkers and writers who dictate its policy, Count Robert de Caix and M. Auguste Terrier. 242, 40 tons of ebony, bought in the usual way by a British firm on the Congo and shipped to Havre in a French ship, were seized at that port, 1902, on a mandate of a concessionaire company. This produce has, however, now been restored. 243, the Foreign Office was warned as far back as the beginning of 1898 by the Manchester Chamber of Commerce of the danger of the possible inauguration of a system of territorial monopolies. Lord Salisbury said it would receive our most earnest attention, and admitted inferentially that in fiscal questions England had, as a free trade country, inferior means of influencing other countries, with the occasional exception, added his lordship, of territorial concessions, we have no means whatever of persuasion. Nevertheless, in the purely fiscal question which formed the principal object of the deputation of Chambers of Commerce to Lord Salisbury on this occasion, that of the differential tariff in the French possessions, Lord Salisbury was able to get his own way, simply by persuasion, by influencing France's ideas. Yet in this matter of the French Congo concessions, in which the purely fiscal question does not enter at all, and where we have an international treaty to work on, Lord Lansdowne has been unable to prevent the expulsion of British merchants from an internationally free trade zone. 244, the Morning Post, the Manchester Guardian, the Liverpool Daily Post, and West Africa. 245, the German merchants, despairing of obtaining even the most elementary justice, have evacuated the territory. Our merchants have chosen the nobler part of making a stand for their rights, guaranteed under international law. 246, to which must now be added the somewhat similar Rabeneck affair, an Austrian subject arrested and removed by the Congo state in the Katanga district under circumstances analogous, in some measure, to the case of Mr. Stokes. 247, the other day the then French parliamentary representative of Senegal, in a speech to his constituents at St. Louis, warned them that the greatest danger threatening their hinterland, the French Sudan, was King Leopold of Belgium and his monopolist gang. 248, at the Great Colonial Congress held in Berlin on October 11, Consul Vossen moved a resolution, unanimously carried, calling upon the powers to institute proceedings for the revision of the Berlin Act. Consul Vossen said, from the very first the Congo state, and recently France and the French colony of French Congo, have acted against the principles laid down in the Congo Act. Referring to the Congo state, he continued, all so-called countries not occupied by natives situated in the free trade zone were, as far back as July 1885, declared the property of the state, and in the year 1892 heavy taxes were imposed upon the rubber trade, which was entirely prohibited in parts of the free trade zone. The consequence was that the freedom of trade and commerce guaranteed by the Congo Act was practically abolished. The first condition of freedom of trade for the nations is freedom to the natives, in such a way as to leave them free to dispose of the natural products of the soil and of the chase, which state of affairs existed before the passing of the Act in all French, English, and German colonies in West Africa, and exists today, with the exception of the territories of the Congo state and the French Congo, the very colonies where, strange to say, free trade is insisted upon by Articles I and V of the Act. 249, among the supporters of the Mansion House meeting of May 15, held under the auspices of the Aborigines Protection Society, were Mr. John Morley, Sir J. Kennaway, Earl Spencer, the Marquis of Ripon, Lord Avebury, Mr. Lecky, MP, Sir Edward Clarke, K.C., Sir W. Brampton Gordon, MP, KCMG, Sir Charles Dilke, MP, Sir Mark J. Stewart, MP, Mr. James Bryce, MP, Mr. W. S. Robson, MP, and other politicians of both parties. 5 chambers of commerce, the African Society, and the German Colonial Society were represented, and Dr. Alfred Zimmermann, attaché to the German embassy in London, also attended. 250. Commandant Binger's views are well known. M. Cousturier, governor of French Guinea, in his report on French Guinea for 1901, does not conceal his adverse opinion of Belgian methods of collecting rubber in the Congo state. The author could produce documentary evidence showing that similar opinions are held by other well-known French officials in West Africa. 251. Belgium, Great Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Italy, and Russia sent delegates to the conference. 252. This was done with the exception of England. 253. Diego Cam. 254. The original title had by this time been changed to that of International Congo Association. 255. The point is brought out very clearly by Mr. Dennett, our only authority on the Fjord Kingdom of Congo, and the author of several books concerning the fjord, in a series of interesting letters published last year in West Africa. Mr. Dennett, who has lived 22 years consecutively in the Lower Congo, positively declares that the treaties made by the association, and referred to by General Sandford, had no validity whatever in native law. 256. In his report on the Congo state for 1898, Consul Pickersgill concludes a long enumeration of the taxes levied upon independent trade by the following humorous passage. I may sum up this portion of my remarks by quoting the jocose observations of the English and American missionaries, who declared to me that there is nothing free in the independent state, except fevers, while a Belgian father with whom I had some conversation on the subject, remarked, the government taxes even the civilization we bring. 257. Who held the monopoly of the ivory trade in the Upper Congo, which the Congo state, by exterminating them with the aid of its cannibal soldiery, see Hin's Fall of the Congo Arabs, became possessed of. 258. See Mr. Herbert Ward's 5 Years with the Congo Cannibals, page 297. 259. The whole paragraph might have been written a few weeks, instead of 11 years, ago. The state of affairs pictured by Colonel Williams has worsened instead of bettered. The evil is more widespread and the means of perpetuating it more extensive and more powerful. Read in this connection the latest revelations by Mr. Canisius and Captain Burrows. 260. The importance of the 10% import duty was purposely exaggerated. The amount derived therefrom was trifling. The merchants objected to it on principle. As Sir Albert Rollitt justly remarked, the reason for our opposition is only that they, the import duties, would infringe the great principle of freedom of commerce, which was the very basis of the program of the Berlin Conference. It is quite clear, however, that the majority of the merchants also opposed the import duties from a vague distrust of the king's ultimate intentions, a distrust which events proved to be only too well founded. 261. The map published by the African Society in the May, 1902, issue of its journal may be consulted with advantage in this respect. 262, among whom might be mentioned Aguard, Hind, Glave, Morrison, Hawkins, Shepherd, Andrew, Schoblaum, Alfred Parmenter, de Mandat-Grancy, Rankin, Murphy, Lloyd, Grogan, and many others, without counting Belgian authorities, more numerous than all foreigners put together. 263. At the present moment heavy fighting is going on in the Welly district, due, as I have reason to know, to the usual rubber taxes. The facts as to this particular rising may, happily, have been made public before the publication of the present volume. 264. The regular army, force public, of the Congo state is admitted officially, Bulletin, July 1900, to be 15,000, but we know that in addition to this regular force, 15,000 cannibals armed with Albinis, sections of whom are continually revolting, the state habitually arms, whenever it deems necessary, thousands of irregulars, cannibals for choice. See the letter written in October 1899 to the king by the acting head of the American Presbyterian Mission in the Kasai district. There is also a large reserve corps, but the extent of it is not known. 265. It may be usefully noted here that the impots de nature are applied by the Congo state in the so-called free trade zone as well as in the domaine prive, and until the Kasai district was incorporated in the domaine prive many and bitter were the complaints by companies operating in the former zone of the unfair competition to which they were subjected by the levying of this tribute. Instances have been given by some of these irate traders where the state's officials have threatened the natives with condign punishment if they did not hand over all their rubber to the said officials. An arrangement has recently been concluded between the state and the Kasai companies. The Kasai district was the only portion of the Upper Congo where independent trade had been allowed, whereby the Kasai companies have amalgamated into a syndicate in which the state holds 1/2 the interest. To all intents and purposes, therefore, the Kasai has now been incorporated in the domain prive, which henceforth embraces the whole of the Congo state north of Stanley Pool. 266. Both these facts have been repeatedly asserted. They were proved beyond manner of doubt last year by the disclosures attendant upon the Mongala scandals, in which agents of the Société Anversoise were involved. 267. 7. If we include the Kasai Trust recently formed. 268. Baron A. Goffinet is Conseiller Delegation, Secrétaire de Commandements de l'Urs et même le Roi et la Reine, Major de l'État, Major de la Garde Civique, Aide de Camp, Minister Resident. Baron C. Goffinet is Conseiller Delegation, Intendant de la Liste Civile du Roi, Minister Resident, Major de la Garde Civique. 269. I have quite recently received from another correspondent in the Congo the photograph here reproduced. 270. Abir, Société à Responsabilité Limitée, Statutes. Anvers, Imprimerie Radings Frères, Grand Place, 40-42. 271. Comptoir Commercial Congolais, Société à Responsabilité Limitée, Statutes. Anvers, Imprimerie Radings. 272. Compagnie du Lomami, Société Anonyme, Statutes. Bruxelles P. Weissenbruch, Imprimerie du Roi, 45 Rue du Poincon. 273. In Chapter 28. I referred to the constitution of the Comptoir Colonial Français, which has managed to secure for its subsidiaries such a respectable slice of French Congo. Well, Alexis Moles is one of the administrators, and so is A. Austerieff, a shareholder in the Abir, and so is A. Lambrex, also a shareholder in the Abir, and C. 274. I am afraid Sir H. M. Stanley was somewhat premature when, in 1884, he told the London Chamber of Commerce that people could not appreciate rightly King Leopold's philanthropy, because there were no dividends attaching to it. 275. Whip made out of hippo hide, the Congo sjambok. 276, or was until quite recently. 277. In Congo circles in Belgium it is suggested that to guard against attacks which might become too threatening, by attacks is meant exposures in the public press, and on public platforms in England and Germany, the Congo state should largely increase its standing army. 278. The author, who may claim to have brought the Rabenek affair to light, is able to state that the British government is causing specific inquiries to be made through its representatives in Central Africa in connection with the matter. See Appendix. 279. The trade of the Lower Congo has sensibly diminished since the Congo state came into existence. On August 10 of last year the merchants established in the Lower Congo, of whom there remain a few, petitioned the king to reduce taxation. After pointing out the heavy import and export duty on goods and produce, 20s per ton on palm oil, for instance, and showing how small the existing export trade already was, owing to the taxes and emigration of native labor, due to the means employed in raising native levies, the petitioners went on to say, "We do not disguise from ourselves that business in the Lower Congo is practically nil. Each of us," continues the petition, "consistently hopes for an increase in trade, but these hopes appear to us more and more unreliable, and the government of the Congo state, instead of coming to aid us, imposes increased and too onerous taxes." 280. The figures for 1900 are based upon the known sale on the Antwerp market by the state brokers in 1900 of 1828 tons of rubber and 153,445 kilos of ivory, worked out at an average of 6 francs per kilo. For rubber, 11-15 kilos to the ton, and 18 francs per kilo for ivory. I believe a proportion of the produce imported was held in stock on account of the poor state of the rubber market. 281. There is no trade, properly so called, says Mr. Codrington, on the Congo coast of Tanganyika, but all rubber and ivory is regarded as the property of the state, and has to be surrendered by the natives in fixed quantities annually. The natives are, however, continually in rebellion, and the country is unsafe, except in the immediate vicinity of the military garrisons, and within the sphere of influence of the missionaries. 282, as was anticipated, the acquirement from Spain for purposes of exploitation of a portion of the Muni territory, which was recently handed over to Spain by France, by the Belgian clique has been followed by the usual results. A correspondent, whose name commands universal respect, and who is in a position to speak de visu on the subject, wrote to an English friend recently that atrocities were going merrily on, natives being shot down, and villages burnt in the course of ivory collecting by the Belgian concessionaires. Outrages on the villagers are indiscriminate, the writer adds. The same clique is threatening Fernando Pa. 283, apart from the large quantities of rifles, capguns, and ammunition imported into the Congo state for the arming and equipment of the soldiers, regular and irregular, it is morally certain, although not easy to prove, that the agents of the state and the agents of the domain prive companies encourage some of the biggest and most powerful chiefs of the Upper Congo to obtain ivory for them by presents of repeating rifles and ammunition. In this connection A.M. Lyon C. Berthier, writing from the French Upper Congo to the Paris Organ Law de Pêche Coloniale, issued July 16, 1902, says, "The Mbomu, a branch of the Upper Ubangi, which forms the frontier between the French and Congolese possessions, and which pursues its course to the Bahr el Ghazal, here very wide, forms the southern base of the square. This is the route where the ivory passes sous notre barbe to be sold to the Belgians on the other bank, who pay for it in Albini rifles, notwithstanding all the acts of Berlin and Brussels, which forbid even the sale of percussion cap guns." The writer goes on to assert that he has documents to prove his statements. 284, Mary Kingsley, in the Story of West Africa. 285, excluding specie. The figures are taken from the Parliamentary Report, June 1902. 286, Sierra Leone Royal Gazette, April 18, 1902. 287, estimated. Appropriation Ordinance, 1902. 288, Railways and Telegraphs, Appropriation Ordinance, 1902. 289, Colonial Office Report, number 324. On page 8 of the same report the figures are given as £29,126.18. 7d. I cannot explain the difference. 290, Sierra Leone Royal Gazette, April 18, 1902. 291, Edam. 292, estimated. 293, the figures for 1900 do not include the expenses of the Ashanti expedition. 294, including exports of specie. 295, ordinary for 1897, 1898, 1899, and 1900, extraordinary for 1897, 1898, and 1899. 296, Sir Matthew Nathan's Report on the Northern Territories, number 357, issued July 1902, says, the expenditure in 1901 has not yet been completely estimated. Farther on he estimates the expenditure for 1902 at £52,381.11. 7d. The expenditure is, therefore, largely increasing. The above amount includes £23,038.11. 7d. Or military purposes. 297, according to Lieutenant Colonel Morris, CO Report, number 35, the revenue in 1901 was £7,415.4. 3d. It was estimated at £8,000, and the estimate for 1902 is also £8,000. 298, including £97,769 paid back to the imperial government for cost of expenditure on Ashanti expedition. 299, official statement, dated March 1902, first section, 39 1/4 miles long, open to traffic, and section, of 9 3/4 miles, approaching completion. 300, Colonial Office Report, number 344, sum borrowed to end 1900, apparently £798,000, £220,000, 1898, £578,000, 1899. 301 Edam. 302 Railway Development, £578,000, Harbour Works at Accra, £98,000. 303 Estimated. 304 Colonial Office Report, number 348. 305 Edam. 306 If for resale. 307 Edam. 308 1 mile, 1609 meters. 309 In 1901 there was an increase of 4,600 tons of palm oil and kernels exported compared with the previous year. 310 Wallach. 311 Late Lieutenant Colonel Northcote's estimate. It does not include the portion of the Anglo-German Neutral Territory, which is eventually to be incorporated within the British sphere, according to the Anglo-German Convention of November 1899. 312 The principal towns of the Protectorate are Ibadan, population 180,000, Abeokuta, population 150,000, Oyo, population 50,000. 313 If we assume the population of northern Nigeria to be 30 millions, this gives us a rough total, exclusive of Ashanti, of 33,218,324 inhabitants to 645,000 square miles of territory, or not far short of the population of France, in a territory as large as France and Germany, with a good half of Austria-Hungary thrown in. Index Abeokuta, 199 Abderrahman ben Abdullah ben Imran ben Amir Es Sadi, 130 Abir, see Congo State Aborigines Protection Society, 185 Abutshire, 119 Abyssinia, see Christianity Adamoa, 57, 61, 95, 128, 180 African Association, 28, 38 African Oil Mills Company, 79 Agult, Comte D, 290 Agricultural Committee, see German Ahmed Baba, 55, 130 Air, 53, 54 Akasa, 56, 75 Allen, Commander, 94, 103 Alvenselben, Count, 176 Amaghetti, 111 Anglo-French Convention, see Treaties German Convention, see Treaties Portuguese Convention, see Treaties Angola, 193, 241 Ansorge, Dr. 181 Anton, Dr. 344 Anversoise, see Congo State Apis, 146 Ashanti, 14, 19, 68, 104, 135, 205, 280, 281 Assay, 76 Assani, 204, 271 Atani, 75 Axim, 204 Bagina, 131, 132 Bagurmi, 57, 258, 259, 262 Bakundi, Lake, 111 Bakunu, 130 Ballet, Doctor, 87, 114, 274 Ballot, Governor, 280 Bambaras, 53, 129, 180, 215 Bamboo Palm, 116, 117 Bambuk, 133 Bangalas, 330, 339 Banyo, 111 Baobab, 116 Barbot, 271 Baros, De, 133 Barth, Doctor, 40, 44. 52, 54, 55, 59, 60, 62, 70, 71, 72, 118, 126, 131, 133, 136, 209, 214, 221 Bassett, Surge, 290 Bathurst, 162 Earl, 39 Battel, Andrew, 241 Bayal, Dr. 139 Belgian Policy in West Africa, 176, 307, 311, see also Congo State Belgians in French Congo, 288, 307 on Muni River, 307, 350 Belgium, King Leopold of, see Congo State Bello, Emir, 36, 46, 49, 50, 51, 53, 59, 150 Benin, 68, 105, 204 Berlin, active, see Treaties Bethencourt, de, 239 Bilma, 42, 58, 67 Binger, Commandant, 133, 211, 220, 239, 240. 249, 271, 309 Binway, 109, 111, 113, 118, 119, 148, 211, 257 Bairu, C. Wallata Bismarck, 250, 317 Blyden, Dr. 130, 139, 149, 213, 214, 222, 226, 227, 245, 276 Bone, M. 173, 247, see also French West African Company. Bondu, 133, 180 Boni, 79 Borgu, 9, 49, 251 Bornu, 40, 41, 43, 45, 50, 57, 58, 63, 85, 87, 113, 209, 259 Brass, 79, 80 Braza, De, 251, 289, 293, 315 to 316 Bretonnet, Lieutenant, 259, 260 British Cotton Growing Association, 188, 189, 190 Brown, Dr. Robert, 131 Brew, Sieur de, 134, 251, 274 Brussels, Act of, see Treaties Barutu, 64, 75, 76, 86 Busa, 49, 50 Buttertree, 114, 115 Cieda Mosto, 133 Cakes, Count Robert de, 302 Cambyses, 76 Cameroon, 14, 177, 201, 287, 308 Caravan Traffic, 41, 62 to 65 Cardu. Sir F, 283 Cardi, Count de, 80 Cadier, M, 313, 343, 344, 350 Chad, Lake, 38, 41, 42, 43, 48, 58, 63, 67, 70, 118, 136, 256, 259, 260, 262 Chalmers, Sir David, 281, 282 Chama, 204 Chamberlain, Right Honourable Joseph, 12, 25, 59, 169, 278, see also Colonial Office Christianity, in Abyssinia, 237 in Uganda, 227, 228, 229 in West Africa, 208 to 37, 256 Clapperton, 35 to 51, 53, 103, 126, 147, 150 Clark, Sir Andrew, 83, 258 Clark, Sir Marshall, 182 Closel, M, 171, 173, 273 Codrington, Mr. Robert, 349. Colonial Office, 165, 169, 183, 184, 281, 283, see also Chamberlain Comptoir Colonial Francais, 288, 336 Conakry, 20, 114, 274 Concessions Regime, see French Congo State, History of, 312 to 326 Trade of, 286, 343 to 53 Taxation in, 327 to 29, 330, 339, 340, 347, 348 Native Policy of, 287, 292, 319, 328 to 29, 337, 345, 352 Land Policy, 323, 324 Commercial Policy of, 319, 323, 325, 330, 344, 345 Traffic in Arms, 351 Force Public, 329, 330 Domain Prive, 327 to 42, 343, 347, 351 Privileged Companies. In, 330 to 38 Stokes Affair, 306 Rabenek Affair, 306, 344-49, see also Appendix and Belgian Parliament, 333-334 on Tanganyika, 349 in Nile Valley, 349 Slavery in, 296 Influence in France, 271, 287, 288, 289, 310 Copal, see Trade in Gums Copra, 80 Cops, see Gober Cotton, 59, 117, 180, 181-200, see also under Trade Cousin, M. Malbert, 294 Couturier, M. 115, 309 Cramp Bell, Paul, 259 Crown Agents, see Crown Colony System 12, 13, 16, 17, 22, 31, 32, 33, 85, 87, 89, 92, 93, 184. 186, 235, 269, 281 Crowther, Bishop, 97 Currency, 60, 101 Dahomey, see under French Dakar, 270 Da, Mr. J.A., 170, 183 Decrays, M., 285, 291, 302 Dagama, 75 Delafosse, 173, 273 Denham, 35-51 Dennett, Mr., 289, 317 Denton, Sir George, 194 Desert, the, 38, 41, 64, 70, 111, 209, 253 Dilkey, Sir Charles, 276 Dobson, Archbishop, 233 Donovan, Captain, 170 Dubois, M. Felix, 131, 137, 138 Dufferin, Marquis of, 252 Dybowski, M., 259 Ebony, 117, see also Timber Adrizi, 55 Aga, 76 Eichel, M.D., 132. 140 El Bekri, 55, 209 El Hadji Omar, 129, 223, 252, 261 El Kuti, 259 Ellis, A.B., 171 Etienne, Eugene, 250-63 Faidherbe, 143, 226, 243, 250, 252, 263 Fans, 293 Ferry, Jules, 243, 244, 249 Finances of British West Africa, 17, 18, see also Appendix of Nigeria, 17, 89, 93, see also Appendix Finances of Lagos, 267, see also Appendix of Sierra Leone, 274, 275, 284, see also Appendix of French Colonies, 266, 275, see also Appendix Flatters, 259 Fondera, M., 294 Forcados, 204 Foreign Office, 14, 26. 30340, M., 254, 259, 261 Freeman, R. Austin, 104, 201, 271 French, Exploration and Discovery, 238-48 Trade, 4, 5, 265-75 Policy, 18, 64, 249-84 in French Guinea, 81, 111, 114, 266, 274, 275, 281-84 in Dahomey, 177, 266, 267, 268, 269 in Chad Region, 64, 254, 256, 257, 259, 260-64 in Western Sudan, 196, 251, 256, 257 in Senegal, 76, 81, 266, 269, 270 in French Congo, 177, 201, 263, 285-304 in Ivory Coast, 177, 266, 270, 271, 272, 273 in British, 238 to 48, see also under Nigeria, French policy, and French Congo West African Company, 285, see also Bone Fry, Colonel, 55 Fulani, origin of, 136 to 52 history of, 125 to 29, 130 to 135 in Yoruba, 125, 126, 135 in Hausa states, 47, 60, 85, 102, 125 to 30 in Gambia, 130, 134, 141 in Fudajalan, 128, 130, 133, 139, 140, 180 in Senegal, 127, 128, 132, 133, 134, 136, 252 in Western Sudan, 128, 147, 148, 253 in Gurma, 134 in Adamawa, 128 in Bagirmi, 262 in Congo Basin, 135 in Sigu, 129 in Bagina, 131, 132, 133 in Bornu, 40, 128, 138 in Mel, 131, 132, 133 in Omdurman, 135 in Masina, 129, 134, 214 and Portuguese, 133 and British, 46 to 50, 152 and French, 134, 147, 148, 152, 252 and Hebrews, 145, 152 characteristics of, 47, 134, 146, 148 religion of, 55, 56, 127, 216, 254 language of, 70, 71, 72, 132 Fula, see Fulani Fooled, see Fulani Fulfalled, see Fulani Fudajalan, 9, 14, 20, 66, 139, 245, 274 Gabon, 298, 299 Gambia, 19, 134, 194, 196, 197, 242, 269, 278 Gambetta, 243, 244 Gando, 57, 95 Gao, 197, 210 Guri, Sir William, 280. General Africaine, Société, see Congo State Gentil, Lieutenant, 254, 258, 259, 260 German, Trade, 4, 5, 74, 75, 193, 196, 199 Agricultural Committee, 23, 24, 196 Colonial Advisory Board, 23, 24 German Colonial Society, 29, 308 Ghana, 131 Ghanada, see Wallata Gober, 53, 54, 55, 59, 125, 129 Gold Coast, 12, 13, 18, 25, 57, 183, 194, 204, 245 Gold, see Mining Industry, also under Trade Goldie, Sir George, 9, 39, 68, 104 Grand Bassam, 204, 273 Green, Mrs. J. R., Forward Gregory, Professor, 99, 179. Grogan, Mr. H. S., 178, 179, 181, 202, 349 Groundnut, see under Trade Garadin, Captain de, 148 to 50 Gutta 116 Hamarua, 113 Hanno, 136, 140, 141, 142, 202 Hatton and Cookson, 300 Hausa Association, 70, 71 Language, 54, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73 History, 53, 54 Religion, 53, 56, 68 Houses as Manufacturers and Traders, 57, 63, 67, 68, 69, 111, 117 as travelers, 57, 69, 111, 116 as soldiers, 68, 69 as slave owners, 55, 63, 112 relations of with Fulani, 53, 55, 56, 68 Helm, Mr. E, 182 Herodotus, 35, 76 Hess, M. Jean, 290 Holt, Mr. John, 300 Hornman, 38 Hudas, M.O., 130, 132 Auerst, 22, 26 Hut tax in Sierra Leone, see under taxation in French Congo, see under taxation Hutton, Mr. Arthur, 11, 20, 188 Hyksos, 140, 142, 143, 145, 146 IBI, 111 Ida, 76 Agaras, 56, 118 Ilorine, 68, 96 Alushi, 76 Indigo, 117 Insula, 65 International Congo Association, 309, 314 to 20 Islam in West Africa, 208 to 23 in Bornu, 209, 213 in House Estates, 53, 55, 56, 101, 213, 214, 221 in Bagurmi, 215 in Kanam, 209, 210 in Gambia, 278 in Yoruba, 208 in Adamawa, 214 in Lagos, 213 to 15 in Sierra Leone, 213 to 15 in Futajalan, 215 in Western Sudan, 209, 215, 216, 244, 254 in Kong, 220, 221 in French possessions, 215, 216, 278 Ivory Coast, 57, 206, 220, see also under French Ivory, see under Trade Yago, Consul, 64 Jalankis, 128 Jeba, 76, 119 Johnson, Dr. O, 187 Johnston, Sir H, 70, 141, 202, 227, 228, 265, 349 Jolloffs, 128, 147 Jones, Sir Alfred, 20, 188, 192, 235 Canham, 45, 69, 209, 254, 257 Kano, 45, 46, 52, 57, 58, 59, 60, 62 to 67, 70, 72, 86, 111, 112, 191, 192 Kanuri, 56, 59, 70, 71, 72, 114, 128 Katamansu, Battle of, 28 Katanga Company, see Congo State Katsena, 54, 55, 59, 62, 72 Kingsley, Miss Mary, 86, 124, 141, 171, 173, 232, 235, 266, 276, 353 Cole, the Rev, 72 Kola, 57, 116 Contagara, 98 Katonu, 268 Kraus, the Rev, 70 Kuka, 41, 43, 48, 63 Labat, 134, 240 Labor, Native, 76, 77, 170 to 87, 197 Ordnance in Gold Coast, 13 Lagos, 18, 19, 49, 162, 164, 186, 193, 199, 201, 204, 206, 245, 267, 268, 269 Lahu, 204, 271 Lamy, Lieutenant, Colonel, 254, 259, 261 Lamy, see under Tradelander, Richard, 40, 41, 48, 51 Land tenure, in West Africa, 170 to 87 in Sierra Leone, 278 in Ivory Coast, 171 in French Congo, 291, 292 in Congo State, see Congo State Lansdowne, Lord, 302, 303, 310 Lao, 111 Laveron, 163 Leatherware, 58, 59, 60 Leo Africanus, 59, 131, 137, 209 Lepsius, Professor, 143 Leucothiops, Cephalani Liberia, 57, 220, 229 Liquor Traffic, 179, 235 Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine. 20, 163, see also Ras Lagon River, 43 Lokoja, 76 Lomami, see Congo State London School of Tropical Medicine, 20 Lucas, 38 Lugard, Sir Frederick, 9, 83, 85, 87, 88, 89, 99, 104, 127 Lyon, 38 MacDonald, Sir Claude, 11 McGregor, Laird, 28, 94 Sir William, 19, 22, 32, 33, 162, 163, 164, 168, 170, 187, 189 Macleod, Dr. 138 Mahogany, C. Under Trade, Timber, Maister, M. 259 Macreasy, 210 Malaria, 12, 153 to 69 Manatus, 55, 211 Mandara, 39 Mandingos, 53, 128, 131, 133, 150, 195, 211 Maritime Zone. 290 Marmal, 133 Maroba, 97 Meline, M. 247 Mel, 131, 132, 195, 210 Mendes, 69, 123, 278 Merchants, British, in West Africa, 8, 22, 23, 25, 30, 238, 239, 246, 252, 257 in French Congo, 286, 291, 298 to 304, 306 and Liquor Traffic, 235 German, in West Africa, 23, 24 in French Congo, 291 French, early exploits of, 240 to 42 in Senegal, 81 in Ivory Coast, 81 Mill, M. Pierre, 81, 330 Mining Industry, in Gold Coast, 12, 29, 182 to 83, see also Appendix in Ivory Coast, 270 to 71 Misaho, 196 Missionaries, c. Christianity Michi, 118 Muhammad El Kanemi, 45, 51 Muhammad Lebo, 129 Mohammedans, C. Islam Maloney, Sir Alfred, 203 Mongolia, Atrocities in, see Congo State's Monopoly, see Congo State and French in French Congo Montail, Lieutenant, Colonel, 57, 59, 70, 96, 118, 251 more, Sir Ralph, 90 more, Francis, 130, 147 Moses, 9, 131, 251 Mosquitoes, see Malaria Muni River, 307, 350 Merzuk, 38, 41, 42 Nachtigal, 118 Nathan, Sir Matthew, see Appendix National African Company, see Niger Company Natron, 58, 61. Navarrete, 239 New Calabar, 79 Gondir, 111 Niger Coast Protectorate, see Nigeria Niger Company, 9, 67, 75, 88, 90, 91, 95, 96, 111, 112, 118 Niger, see Nigeria, Discovery of Northern, 35 to 51 Inhabitants of, 84, 180 Trade of, 59, 60 to 66, 84, 91 to 93 Finances of, 89, 93 Administration of, 18, 19, 83 to 88, 255, 257, 258 Forest Ordinances in, 184 to 87 National Industry in, 74, 82 and the French, 66, 85 Nikki, 9 Northcote, Lieutenant, Colonel, 107, 108 Noop, 50, 58, 61, 68, 95, 97, 104 Agao, 293. 299, 303 Agyat Lake, 75 Old Calabar, 79 Onitsha, 75 Orashi River, 75 Osogbo, 126, 135 Othman Fodio, 45, 53, 55, 57, 125, 126, 129, 222 Adni, Dr. 35 to 51 Overweg, 70 Palm oil industry, in southern Nigeria, 74 to 82, 110 in Dahomey, 268 in Lagos, 67, 268 in Sierra Leone, 123, see also under Trade Kernels Industry, in southern Nigeria, 76 in Dahomey, 268, see also under Trade in Lagos, 268 Park, Mungo, 36, 37, 150 Pawpaw, 114, 115, 116 Petty, Major, 37 Pool, see Fulani Pickersgill, Consul, 317. Pilcher, Lieutenant, Colonel, 69 Pliny, 35 Polygamy, see Islam Porto Novo, 268 Portugal and the Congo and the Fulani, see Fulani and Great Britain, see Treaties Portuguese Discoveries in West Africa, 239, 240, 259 Church in West Africa, 216, 217, 218 Potash, 118 Prempra, 26, 280 Prince Henry the Navigator, 240 Ptolemy, 141 Punitive Expeditions, 19, 87, 98, 279 Putkamer, Hervon, 96 Quadrilla, 219, 220 Rabbah, 50 Rabbah, 63, 64, 256, 258, 259, 261, 262 Rabanek, see under Congo State Raqqa, 48, 49. 50 Railways, in British West Africa, 12, 18, 22, 32, 193, 267, 284, see also Appendix in French Guinea, 20, 32, 66, 274, see also Appendix in Dahomey, 66, 267, see also Appendix in Senegal, 270, see also Appendix in Northern Nigeria, 8, 66, see also Appendix Matadi, Stanley Pool, 37, 69, 287, 348, see also Appendix Reckless, Elizy, 118 Religion, see Christianity and Islam Richardson, James, 55, 70, 96 Reverend J, 86 Ripon, Marquis of, 12 Ritchie, 38 Rivers, the, see Nigeria Robinson, John A, 70. Cannon, 54, 70, 71, 72, 231 Rollet, Sir Albert, 318, 323 Ross, Major R, 20, 152 to 69 Room, M, 196 Rubber, in Nigeria, 67, 110, 119 to 24 in French Congo, 298 in Lagos, 82, 123 Rubber, in Congo State, see Congo State Russell, Lord John, 94, 103 Sahara, see Desert Salisbury, Lord, 252, 253, 297, 303 Salmon, CS, 20, 170 Salt, 58, 62, 167 Samori, 256, 261 Sandford, General, 316 Sunda, 57, 293 Sanitation, 153 to 69 Sapelli, 117, 204 Sarba, 171, 184 Shan, 70, 71 Shurs, 98 Sekondi, 204 Senegal, 25. 82, 132, 197, 243, 252, 269, 270, see also under French Senussi, 64, 257 Set Kama, 299 Sherry, 43, 44, 45, 57, 63, 215, 258, 259, 261 Shea Butter, 113 Sherbro, 82 Shango, 76 Shua, 75, 180, 254, 262 Sierra Leone, 14, 18, 19, 27, 28, 74, 82, 164, 194, 201, 242, 245, 252, 274, 275, 277, 278, 279 Silver, 118 Slavery, in West Africa, 100, 218 Oversea, 228, 255, 297, 298 Domestic, 94 to 109 in Sierra Leone, 283 in Northern Territories of the Gold Coast, 107, 108 in Nupe and Ilorine, 109 in Congo State, 296, see also Congo State. The New Slavery, 177, 307, see also Congo State Slave Rating, 87, 94 to 109, 171, 219, 319 Slaves, White Slaves of England, 107 Sokoto, Treaties with, see under Treaties under Bello, 41, 45, 47, 49, 50, 126, see also under Fulani Songhais, 53, 55, 56, 131, 197, 209, 210, 211, 253, 236 Soninks, 211 Stanley, Sir H.M., 297, 312, 315, 319, 321, 337 Stewart, Captain Donald, 281 Stokes, see under Congo State Strachan, Dr. 163 Stracker, Monsignor, 227 Strouch. Colonel, 315 Susus, 278, 279 Tanganyika, 349 Tariq, 130, 131, 132, 133, 134, 209, 211, 214 Taxation, in Sierra Leone, 14, 18, 27, 82, 135, 277, 278, 281, 284 in Lagos, 269 in Dahomey, 269, 279, 280 in Ashanti, 279 to 81 in Gambia, 280 in French Guinea, 274, 277, 278, 281 to 84 in Congo State, see Congo State and French Congo, 293, 295, 301 in Hausa States, 127 direct in West Africa, 280 Terrier, Auguste, 262, 302 Thompson, Joseph, 9, 39, 56, 58, 95, 97, 118, 126, 211, 221 Thies, Colonel, 37, 288, 325. 348 Tabati, 111 Tijaniya, 129, 219 Timber, see under Trade Timbo, 139 Timbuktu, 38, 59, 65, 128, 131, 210, 253 Tin, 118 Togoland, 193, 196, 199 Trade, British trade with British West Africa, 2, 3, for French West Africa, 4, 5, 6, 297 German West Africa, 4, 5 Portuguese West Africa, 4, 5 Congo State, 297 of Gambia, 4, 194 Gold Coast, 4, see also Appendix Lagos, 4, 267 to 69, see also Appendix Sierra Leone, 284, see also Appendix of Kano, 60, 61, 62, 65 of Nigeria, 4, 74 to 82, 91 to 93 of French possessions, 265 to 75 of Congo State, 286, 343 to 53 early in West Africa, 238 to 48 in Ivory, 38, 61, 67, 118, 202, 203, 271, 272, 298 in Gold, 38, 63, 118, 202, 203, 271. See also mining industry and appendix in ostrich feathers, 38 in kola, 57, 116 in benny seed, 117 in skins, 38, 63 in lammy, 115 in timber, 117, 201 to 207, 271, 272, 298. See also appendix in beeswax, 67 in gums, 67, 112 in shea butter, 113, 114 in cottons, 59, 67, 111, 269 in palm oil, 74 to 82, 110, 268, 272, 298 in palm kernels, 74 to 82, 268, 272 in ground nuts, 76, 81, 194, 269, 270 in rubber, 67, 82, 110, 111, 119 to 124, 298, 299 piassava, 117 treaties, Anglo-French, 24, 67, 246, 247 Anglo-German, 111 Anglo-Portuguese, 316, 318, 319 Franco-German, 111 with Fulani Emirs, Sokoto, 9, 85, 86, 95, 97, 257 to 58 Berlin Act, 177, 297, 299, 300, 301, 303, 306, 307, 308, 314, 318, 319, 321, 323, 343, 344, 345 Brussels Act, 303, 323, 324, 325 of Vienna, 243 Trentinian, General de, 196 Tripoli, 33, 41, 42, 58, 62, 63, 64, 65, 213. Trotter, Captain, 94, 103 Tuareg, 53, 56, 58, 71, 85, 128, 253, 260 Tucky, Captain, 37 Tugwell, Bishop, 86 Tuculars, 129, 131, 253, 254 Twin Rivers, 204 Ubangi, 57, 215, 262 Uganda, 181, 227 United States, 200, 204, 309, 310, 316, 318 Anyoro, 179 Verno, Dr., 138 Vieira, 239 Villadestes, 132 Villaut de Belfons, 240 Vasson, Consul, 308 Volta, 193 Wadai, 57, 64, 254, 257, 263 Wauma, 144, 180 Wakavarando, 181 Wallada, 131, 133, 134, 137, 209, 210 Waldeck Rousseau, 244, 285 Washington, Booker. T, 199 Waters, A.J., 312 West African Frontier Force, 86 Western Sudan, 35, 129, 130, 147, 209, 210, 272 Winterbottom, 147 Warman, 197 Yola, 111, 119 Yoruba, 193 Za Dynasty, 209 Zakasai, 209, 210 Zaki, C. Othman Fodio Zanfara, 55 Zaria, 57 Zegzeg, 54, 55 Zimmerman, Dr. A, 175. Printed by Ballantyne, Hanson and Company. London and Edinburgh. End of the Project Gutenberg ebook. Affairs of West Africa. Updated editions will replace the previous one, the old editions will be renamed. Creating the works from print editions not protected by U.S. copyright law means that no one owns a United States copyright in these works, so the Foundation, and you, can copy and distribute it in the United States without permission and without paying copyright royalties. Special rules, set forth in the general terms of use part of this license, apply to copying and distributing Project Gutenberg electronic works to protect the Project Gutenberg concept and trademark. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark, and may not be used if you charge for an ebook, except by following the terms of the trademark license, including paying royalties for use of the Project Gutenberg trademark. If you do not charge anything for copies of this ebook, complying with the trademark license is very easy. You may use this ebook for nearly any purpose such as creation of derivative works, reports, performances and research. Project Gutenberg. Ebooks may be modified and printed and given away. You may do practically anything in the United States with ebooks not protected by U.S. copyright law. Redistribution is subject to the trademark license, especially commercial redistribution. Start. Full license. The full Project Gutenberg license. Please read this before you distribute or use this work to protect the Project Gutenberg mission of promoting the free distribution of electronic works, by using or distributing this work, or any other work associated in any way with the phrase Project Gutenberg. You agree to comply with all the terms of the full Project Gutenberg license available with this file or online at www.gutenberg.org/license. Section 1. General Terms of Use and Redistributing Project Gutenberg Electronic Works 1.a. By reading or using any part of this Project Gutenberg electronic work, you indicate that you have read, understand, agree to and accept all the terms of this license and intellectual property, trademark/copyright, agreement. If you do not agree to abide by all the terms of this agreement, you must cease using and return or destroy all copies of Project Gutenberg electronic works in your possession. If you paid a fee for obtaining a copy of or access to a Project Gutenberg electronic work and you do not agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement, you may obtain a refund from the person or entity to whom you paid the fee as set forth in paragraph 1.e.8. 1.b. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark. It may only be used on or associated in any way with an electronic work by people who agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement. There are a few things that you can do with most Project Gutenberg electronic works even without complying with the full terms of this agreement. See paragraph 1.c below. There are a lot of things you can do with Project Gutenberg electronic works if you follow the terms of this agreement and help preserve free future access to Project Gutenberg electronic works. See paragraph 1.e below. 1.c. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the Foundation or PGLAF, owns a compilation copyright in the collection of Project Gutenberg electronic works. Nearly all the individual works in the collection are in the public domain in the United States. If an individual work is unprotected by copyright law in the United States and you are located in the United States, we do not claim a right to prevent you from copying, distributing, performing, displaying or creating derivative works based on the work as long as all references to Project Gutenberg are removed. Of course, we hope that you will support the Project Gutenberg mission of promoting free access to electronic works by freely sharing Project Gutenberg works in compliance with the terms of this agreement for keeping the Project Gutenberg name associated with the work. You can easily comply with the terms of this agreement by keeping this work in the same format with its attached full Project Gutenberg license when you share it without charge with others. 1.d. The copyright laws of the place where you are located also govern what you can do with this work. Copyright laws in most countries are in a constant state of change. If you are outside the United States, check the laws of your country in addition to the terms of this agreement before downloading, copying, displaying, performing, distributing or creating derivative works based on this work or any other Project Gutenberg work. The Foundation makes no representations concerning the copyright status of any work in any country other than the United States. 1.e. Unless you have removed all references to Project Gutenberg, 1.e.1. The following sentence, with active links to, or other immediate access to, the full Project Gutenberg license must appear prominently whenever any copy of a Project Gutenberg work, any work on which the phrase Project Gutenberg appears, or with which the phrase Project Gutenberg is associated, is accessed, displayed, performed, viewed, copied or distributed. This ebook is for the use of anyone anywhere in the United States and most other parts of the world at no cost and with almost no restrictions whatsoever. You may copy it, give it away or reuse it under the terms of the Project Gutenberg license included with this ebook or online at www.gutenberg.org. If you are not located in the United States, you will have to check the laws of the country where you are located before using this ebook. 1.2. If an individual Project Gutenberg electronic work is derived from texts not protected by U.S. copyright law, does not contain a notice indicating that it is posted with permission of the copyright holder, the work can be copied and distributed to anyone in the United States without paying any fees or charges. If you are redistributing or providing access to a work with the phrase Project Gutenberg associated with or appearing on the work, you must comply either with the requirements of paragraphs 1.1 through 1.7 or obtain permission for the use of the work and the Project Gutenberg trademark as set forth in paragraphs 1.8 or 1.9. 1.3. If an individual Project Gutenberg electronic work is posted with the permission of the copyright holder, your use and distribution must comply with both paragraphs 1.1 through 1.7 and any additional terms imposed by the copyright holder. Additional terms will be linked to the Project Gutenberg license for all works posted with the permission of the copyright holder found at the beginning of this work. 1.4. Do not unlink or detach or remove the full Project Gutenberg license terms from this work, or any files containing a part of this work or any other work associated with Project Gutenberg. 1.5. Do not copy, display, perform, distribute or redistribute this electronic work, or any part of this electronic work, without prominently displaying the sentence set forth in paragraph 1.1 with active links or immediate access to the full terms of the Project Gutenberg license. 1.6. You may convert to and distribute this work in any binary, compressed, marked up, non-proprietary or proprietary form, including any word processing or hypertext form. However, if you provide access to or distribute copies of a Project Gutenberg work in a format other than plain vanilla ASCII or other format used in the official version posted on the official Project Gutenberg website, www.gutenberg.org, you must, at no additional cost, fee or expense to the user, provide a copy, a means of exporting a copy, or a means of obtaining a copy upon request, of the work in its original plain vanilla ASCII or other form. Any alternate format must include the full Project Gutenberg license as specified in paragraph 1.1. 1.7. Do not charge a fee for access to, viewing, displaying, performing, copying or distributing any Project Gutenberg works unless you comply with paragraph 1.8 or 1.9. 1.8. You may charge a reasonable fee for copies of or providing access to or distributing Project Gutenberg electronic works provided that you pay a royalty fee of 20% of the gross profits you derive from the use of Project Gutenberg works calculated using the method you already use to calculate your applicable taxes. The fee is owed to the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark, but he has agreed to donate royalties under this paragraph to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Royalty payments must be paid within 60 days following each date on which you prepare, or are legally required to prepare, your periodic tax returns. Royalty payments should be clearly marked as such and sent to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation at the address specified in Section 4, Information about Donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. You provide a full refund of any money paid by a user who notifies you in writing, or by email, within 30 days of receipt that he does not agree to the terms of the full Project Gutenberg license. You must require such a user to return or destroy all copies of the works possessed in a physical medium and discontinue all use of and all access to other copies of Project Gutenberg works. You provide, in accordance with paragraph 1.f.3, a full refund of any money paid for a work or a replacement copy, if a defect in the electronic work is discovered and reported to you within 90 days of receipt of the work. You comply with all other terms of this agreement for free distribution of Project Gutenberg works. 1.9. If you wish to charge a fee or distribute a Project Gutenberg electronic work or group of works on different terms than are set forth in this agreement, you must obtain permission in writing from the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the manager of the Project Gutenberg trademark. Contact the Foundation as set forth in Section 3 below. 1.f 1.f.1 Project Gutenberg volunteers and employees expend considerable effort to identify, do copyright research on, transcribe and proofread works not protected by U.S. copyright law in creating the Project Gutenberg collection. Despite these efforts, Project Gutenberg electronic works, and the medium on which they may be stored, may contain defects, such as, but not limited to, incomplete, inaccurate or corrupt data, transcription errors, a copyright or other intellectual property infringement, a defective or damaged disk or other medium, a computer virus, or computer codes that damage or cannot be read by your equipment. 1.f.2 Limited warranty. Disclaimer of damages except for the right of replacement or refund described in paragraph 1.f.3, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark, and any other party distributing a Project Gutenberg electronic work under this agreement, disclaim all liability to you for damages, costs, and expenses, including legal fees. You agree that you have no remedies for negligence, strict liability, breach of warranty or breach of contract except those provided in paragraph 1.f.3. You agree that the Foundation, the trademark owner, and any distributor under this agreement will not be liable to you for actual, direct, indirect, consequential, punitive or incidental damages even if you give notice of the possibility of such damage. 1.f.3 Limited right of replacement or refund. If you discover a defect in this electronic work within 90 days of receiving it, you can receive a refund of the money, if any, you paid for it by sending a written explanation to the person you received the work from. If you received the work on a physical medium, you must return the medium with your written explanation. The person or entity that provided you with the defective work may elect to provide a replacement copy in lieu of a refund. If you received the work electronically, the person or entity providing it to you may choose to give you a second opportunity to receive the work electronically in lieu of a refund. If the second copy is also defective, you may demand a refund in writing without further opportunities to fix the problem. 1.f.4 Except for the limited right of replacement or refund set forth in paragraph 1.f.3, this work is provided to you ASIS, with no other warranties of any kind, express or implied, including but not limited to warranties of merchantability or fitness for any purpose. 1.f.5 Some states do not allow disclaimers of certain implied warranties or the exclusion or limitation of certain types of damages. If any disclaimer or limitation set forth in this agreement violates the law of the state applicable to this agreement, the agreement shall be interpreted to make the maximum disclaimer or limitation permitted by the applicable state law. The invalidity or unenforceability of any provision of this agreement shall not void the remaining provisions. 1.f.6 Indemnity. You agree to indemnify and hold the Foundation, the trademark owner, any agent or employee of the Foundation, anyone providing copies of Project Gutenberg electronic works in accordance with this agreement, and any volunteers associated with the production, promotion, and distribution of Project Gutenberg electronic works, harmless from all liability, costs, and expenses, including legal fees, that arise directly or indirectly from any of the following which you do or cause to occur. A. Distribution of this or any Project Gutenberg work. B. Alteration, modification, or additions or deletions to any Project Gutenberg work, and C. Any defect you cause. Section 2. Information about the mission of Project Gutenberg. Project Gutenberg is synonymous with the free distribution of electronic works in formats readable by the widest variety of computers including obsolete, old, middle-aged and new computers. It exists because of the efforts of hundreds of volunteers and donations from people in all walks of life. Volunteers and financial support to provide volunteers with the assistance they need are critical to reaching Project Gutenberg's goals and ensuring that the Project Gutenberg collection will remain freely available for generations to come. In 2001, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation was created to provide a secure and permanent future for Project Gutenberg and future generations. To learn more about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation and how your efforts and donations can help, see sections 3 and 4 and the Foundation information page at www.gutenberg.org. Section 3. Information about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation is a nonprofit 501(c)(3) educational corporation organized under the laws of the state of Mississippi and granted tax-exempt status by the Internal Revenue Service. The Foundation's EIN or Federal Tax Identification Number is 64-6221541. Contributions to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation are tax-deductible to the full extent permitted by U.S. federal laws and your state's laws. The Foundation's business office is located at 809 North 1500 West, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84116-801-596-1887. Email contact links and up-to-date contact information can be found at the Foundation's website and official page at www.gutenberg.org/contact section 4. Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Project Gutenberg depends upon and cannot survive without widespread public support and donations to carry out its mission of increasing the number of public domain and licensed works that can be freely distributed in machine-readable form accessible by the widest array of equipment, including outdated equipment. Many small donations, $1 to $5,000, are particularly important to maintaining tax-exempt status with the IRS. The Foundation is committed to complying with the laws regulating charities and charitable donations in all 50 states of the United States. Compliance requirements are not uniform and it takes a considerable effort, much paperwork and many fees to meet and keep up with these requirements. We do not solicit donations in locations where we have not received written confirmation of compliance. To send donations or determine the status of compliance for any particular state, visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. While we cannot and do not solicit contributions from states where we have not met the solicitation requirements, we know of no prohibition against accepting unsolicited donations from donors in such states who approach us with offers to donate. International donations are gratefully accepted, but we cannot make any statements concerning tax treatment of donations received from outside the United States. U.S. laws alone swamp our small staff. Please check the Project Gutenberg web pages for current donation methods and addresses. Donations are accepted in a number of other ways, including checks, online payments, and credit card donations. To donate, please visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. Section 5. General information about Project Gutenberg Electronic Works. Professor Michael S. Hart was the originator of the Project Gutenberg concept of a library of electronic works that could be freely shared with anyone. For 40 years, he produced and distributed Project Gutenberg ebooks with only a loose network of volunteer support. Project Gutenberg ebooks are often created from several printed editions, all of which are confirmed as not protected by copyright in the U.S. unless a copyright notice is included. Thus, we do not necessarily keep ebooks in compliance with any particular paper edition. Most people start at our website, which has the main PG search facility, www.gutenberg.org. This website includes information about Project Gutenberg, including how to make donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, how to help produce our new ebooks, and how to subscribe to our email newsletter to hear about new ebooks.